Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 103. A bit of a surprise episode for us, Matt.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Here on a Wednesday. A bit of a surprise for me, too. Unfortunately, we had to do Wednesday this week because our TriCaster operator, Sam, has a gig out of town and needs to take off. So we had to bump it up a little bit. Today's episode is probably going to be a little shorter than usual. We haven't had a lot of time to play games since the last ep.
Not a lot has come out.
Yeah, and nothing's but we have kind of caught up and played some stuff that we weren't able to talk about on the last show. So this might be a quicker and sweeter game face than you're used to. Based upon some of the feedback on YouTube, I think some people there might be happy about that.
Was there complaints about the length?
About the length, yes. We added timestamps to the last episode, and we'll add them to this one as well. Once you have timestamps, I don't really understand what the problem is.
I don't know.
You can watch as little or as much of the show as you want to. So
it's not like YouTube is live.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, there will be timestamps down below for those of you watching this on YouTube.
There's a 2.5-hour review of Fallout 4 on there, and it's like got 2 million views.
Yeah,
I'm not buying length as a problem. Maybe we're just not as interesting
as
someone making fun of Todd Howard for 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, in general, just since the first few episodes have gone up on YouTube, it's different, obviously, from having our own community on Sifted and having other people consume the show. Mostly, though, people have been awesome. They're really loving the show, and they're liking it a lot. Thank you very much for all the compliments you guys have sent along in the comments. We appreciate it very much. Our Patreon is still rocking along. We have about a week and a half or 2 weeks left. Patreon.com/Sifted. You can see it on the bottom of the screen there. I am in preparation of doing a 24-hour live stream, Matt, where I play games for
Bloodborne?
I don't know, man. I'm still figuring out the games.
Probably not the best first impression.
Yeah, we may do some polling on Sifted to kind of figure out what people want to see, whether they want to see me play just one game and try to finish it in the 24 hours, or whether they want to see a bunch of games across it. It might very well kill me, I might add. A person of my age staying up 24 hours playing video games, it could kill me. I'm not even kidding. You
go to bed on Saturday. You wake up on Saturday at the time you used to go to bed on Saturday?
Pretty much, yeah. So I'm a little nervous about it, but in all honesty, there's nothing that matters more than this Patreon. So
I mean, to be fair, dying on stream will get you a lot of Patreon.
Let my ancestors, I don't even have any kids to give the money to, so it'll just go to the state or whatever.
Your wife can run it.
Maybe they'll finally fix the roads in Los Angeles with the money that they make. But yeah, big stream is coming up, 24-hour stream of me playing games. Might have some people come in and say hello throughout the course of the stream, but basically just going for it. It'll be probably the last weekend before the Patreon ends. It'll be a big drive for the Patreon. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, the Patreon, tons of rewards, different tiers, lots of fun stuff in there. Check it out. We appreciate every dollar you guys donate. Generally, $2 for Pack or Factor, $4 for everything. And then there's bigger amounts for really fun stuff, including getting into Pactor's E3 party. So check it out.
And I've seen people from Sifted pop up on my Facebook show, which is Bits and Bytes with a B-Y-T-E-S. I didn't say that last time. I've been saying the title so much that you forget there's another byte.
Right.
But yeah, it's up there. I've seen a lot of Sifted people pop up, so thanks for that.
That's why they had to work to find it. Like they kind of crowdsourced finding the video on Facebook.
It's I think it's Bits and Bytes show is the
if you search for that, it should pop up.
But just Bits and Bytes, and I think you have to use it's either the AND or the ampersand. One comes up and the other doesn't because search engines. And but yeah, keep going and liking and sharing if you like it. It's I wrote all of them. It's hosted by Trisha Hirschberger, which you may know from Rev 3 and Geek and Sundry and many other things. But it's basically X-Play segments.
X-Play, give it a watch.
It's also shot in my apartment, so it also co-stars my DVD collection, if you want to see what's on my shelf.
All right, let's get on with the show. The first game we're going to talk about this week is Capcom versus Marvel Infinite. Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. My brain just imploded right there.
Preview of the 24-hour live stream.
Yeah, it could get real dirty in hour 19 or whatever. It could get really bad. Matt, you've been playing it. The game has been
finally showed up last night, so I got a couple hours in.
The game has been getting ho-hum reviews.
Yeah. That's about right. Yeah.
It seems that the scores fluctuate based upon how hardcore of a fighting game player the reviewer is. Mm-hmm. It seems like the more they are into fighting games and the better they are at fighting games, the less they like it. And the people who are maybe just enjoy fighting games on the periphery seem to be enjoying it a lot more.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of accessibility to it. It's interesting. Like, and like, there's people that got it early in the fighting game community that are like playing it and streaming it and liking it, but then a lot of people are accusing them of like just taking money for it. It's become like a little bit divisive, I think, in that like there's people who haven't played it who can't believe anybody would like it, and look, it's fine. Like it plays pretty well. The combos are there. The thing people are talking about in terms of like accessibility is like if you get in on a character and you just hammer the light punch button, you'll do like a 9-hit combo automatic. It becomes a full auto
insta combos.
And I don't mean like you'll just hit them like 9. Like you'll move into other moves that are not done with light punch and launch them and do like an air combo and smash them back down to the ground. Just by tapping light punch button 9 times. So I understand but the thing is, it's not a tremendously high damage combo. There's way better ways to do serious damage, so it's not going to win you a tournament at any point, obviously. It's just hitting heavy punch and heavy kick together doesn't what's called an easy ultimate or a super move, whatever. And so like sometimes that'll happen by accident because my instinct is still to hit those 2 buttons together to tag. But it does feel a little homogenized, I guess I'd say, because every character, I haven't used everybody, but everybody kind of feels similar in a lot of ways. Like there's like if you have a kind of a baseline of how to play like with the basic 4-button combo stuff, you're going to be able to play anybody like, competently, not necessarily like at a high level. Like clearly I don't understand how Doctor Strange works yet because he's got all these fancy special moves. He can set up things and do stuff. So I don't know that yet. But if you give me like basically any brawler, especially with like a Ryu-style projectile like Iron Man or Captain Marvel, like I'm going to do all right because I already know how that all works. So I kind of understand where people are talking about it feels shallow, but I feel like with any of these games, people are going to find quirks and stuff to work with. I think the Infinity Gems are kind of the key. There's a lot of people saying that there's a couple characters, mainly I think Thanos.
Can you explain that for people who may not know?
The Infinity Stone, it's not gems anymore, they're stones because of the movies. So the Infinity Stones are basically a special power ability that you have on L1 on a controller, and you pick between the 6 Infinity Stones when you choose your team, and each one has a different thing. So you hit that button, and it does a particular move. Like I think a Space Gem hits your opponent back and does a wall bounce or something like that, or maybe it pulls them towards you or whatever. But they're all like a quick little one-off ability. Time makes you dash real fast, like jump, cover a lot of distance real fast. And then when the meter on the Infinity Stone fills up, you hit L1 and R1 together, and you get like an infinity, like super time. It's like a hyper combo period where whatever the stone is has an effect. So like, let me think which one. So like, there's one. I can't remember which one does which. But basically, it's like one because I haven't got like I think space creates like a box, and like your opponent can't get out of the box.
No.
So it kind of holds them in a smaller space, so you can combo on them however you want. One of them, I think, reality or soul calls in your partner to be right with you, and you both hit at the same time during a combo, even if your partner has been defeated.
Oh wow.
So there's a lot. So there's basically people saying that like characters that don't seem competitive can be made competitive with the right Infinity Stone, but there's a lot of lab work going on, which is fighting game term for basically they're sitting in training and seeing what works.
But if you can use the same Infinity Stones for every character, wouldn't it just increase the power of the more powerful characters as well?
No, because what moves someone can do matters.
Okay.
So like the stone that gives you your second character. If you have a character like, say, if your second character is, say, Captain Marvel, who, if you do, like, a fireball move with Heavy Punch, her fireball points up, so it launches them. Uh-huh. Like, you can do more with that than, like, someone who maybe doesn't have something like that. So it's about finding the quirks of the different characters, and, it's like, in the old, it's like, if you wanted a good assist in Marvel 3, like, early on, Doom and his missiles were what you use to lock somebody down. So it's going to come down to like, what combos can you work out with these different, configurations of characters and which one works and which one doesn't. I do find it interesting that they have a built-in anti-Chris G technology in this game. Chris G was a player who dominated Marvel 3 in the tournament scene for a couple of years, at least a year. With his Mirror Morrigan strategy. So Morrigan can break into 2 versions of herself, and she basically does the same moves mirrored. And what he would do is he would do the mirror super, and just launch fireballs and just fill the screen with fireballs. And nobody could do anything. And it took a year to really for people to come up with a solid strategy around that. So now in this game, if you do so there's a technique in the Marvel games called the dancing guard, where if you when you block, you hit the buttons together, and two punch buttons together, or all three depending on which one you're playing, and it knocks the opponent back. It like pushes them away.
Does it stagger them?
No, it just and you can continue your combo, but it just pops them away. It saves you a little chip damage.
Gotcha.
In this game, if you do that, the instant you get hit by a projectile, you reflect the projectile back.
Oh, wow.
So
now you can use that technique.
So now I can use that to kind of complicate the Morrigan trick, if that Morrigan trick even works in this one. I don't know. It's a very different game. It feels kind of chunkier, I guess would be the script. I'd say it feels like it feels like X-Men versus Street Fighter and Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter a bit more than Marvel versus Capcom, or maybe the first Marvel versus Capcom, because it's only 2 people. It's not 3 characters. Yeah. There's only 30 characters in the game, I think, as opposed to Marvel versus Capcom.
Well, this is going to be a DLC smorgasbord.
And actually, I have a complaint about that related to the story mode, which we can get into in a second.
The story mode is what I've played of this. I played the demo that was out. I was not particularly impressed.
I find it pretty embarrassing.
It is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, and my problem with it is, it basically takes place in the worlds of Capcom, which is not an actual world,
right?
And the world and the Marvel universe have been squished together in some kind of convergence thing, and it's ruled attempting to be taken over by Ultron Sigma, which is a combination of Ultron from the Marvel universe and Sigma from Mega Man X, and he's winning basically. And it starts in the middle of all that, and all the Marvel and Capcom characters all know each other already. And the first part, you've seen the fight on the Rainbow Bridge in Asgard, or Xgard now, because it's a combination of the future city of Mega Man X and Asgard. None of it makes any damn sense.
It doesn't, yeah.
But later on, they go to Valkanda, which is a combination of Wakanda from Black Panther and City from Monster Hunter. And the 2 characters you meet there are Black Panther and the Monster Hunter girl, and it's like, fuck you!
Yeah.
Like that's DLC characters. Like DLC characters running around in the game with their character models. You don't get to play them.
Yeah,
but
unless you pay.
But it's just like it's such a. And I'm coming up on the thing. I'm about halfway through it, I think, and I'm clearly coming up on a part where Venom's about to show up, another DLC character, and it's like not only is it like, are they charging?
It's an advertisement for DLC.
I don't usually subscribe to the idea that you've like hacked things out of the main game to sell as DLC later, but this sure feels like it.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
I think what's surprising me the most about the story mode is how poorly it's written. The story sucks, but look,
I was surprised
like this,
at who Chun-Li's voice was.
Who is it?
Ashley Birch.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, they did change Chun-Li at least.
Chun-Li looks better.
Based upon the initial feedback.
But the art style of the cutscenes is awful.
It really is.
Like when Spider-Man shows up, he looks like some kind of ape. Like I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
I don't expect a great story from games like this where you kind of mash up 2 IPs and you're trying to make sense of why they would ever come together. I mean, we've seen it done well before. Obviously, NetherRealm's done a great job with Injustice, kind of mashing up those universes. But I don't expect a lot out of it, but I'm just surprised at how poor the writing is in this, because the other part about it with me is that some of this stuff appears to be like taken from the Marvel films instead of the comic books, and
it's all MCU,
right? And I would figure that they would have tighter quality standards for something like this and would have pushed back on some of this stuff.
I don't think they care.
I'm surprised by that, though.
Well, how many people are going to see this? I mean, it's like, look,
this game's going to be huge. It's going to look. Regardless of its reviews, it's going to be a big game.
Not in comparison to the movies. It's a blip on the radar compared to how many people watch the movies. It doesn't matter. It's probably the same reason Marvel doesn't care that their TV stuff sucks.
Yeah. Well, some of it does, some of it doesn't. But
yeah, it all sucks.
You think it all sucks?
I'm not talking about the Netflix stuff. I'm talking about like broadcast TV stuff. I'm talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Everyone says Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got better, but I just don't see it.
I never watch network TV. I don't watch anything on NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox.
But basically, it's like, does it, and everyone's like, oh, but doesn't matter. First, it's done by a different division. It doesn't, Marvel, the film division doesn't have anything to do with that. And B, like, it's the same reason you're never going to see any of those characters or Phil Coulson or anybody in the movies again is because, a couple 100,000 people watch the shows and millions of people watch the movies all over the world, and you can't just suddenly bring in something that only 100,000 people saw as part of this thing that 10 million people are going to see.
Well, I think this game will probably end up selling a couple million before it's all said and done.
I mean, there's the story mode's in it, which is a step up
from
the last Capcom
best thing you can say about
release.
it, though. It's in there.
But it's like, to me, actually it kept reminding me of, because clearly they're trying to do sort of a NetherRealm sort of Injustice, Mortal Kombat X thing, but to me it feels more like the story from Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, which was kind of the same thing. It's like
it was. It's hacked together.
Useless cutscene, throwaway 5-second fight, useless cutscene, load time. And it's like, and you're like, what's happening? Like, what are you talking about? And like, there's a lot of people standing around randomly getting in fights because you have to have fights.
Because they need to fight. Yeah.
And it's just like, it doesn't really do anything. And the funny thing is, like, the in-game character models look way better than the cutscene character models.
Yeah, I mean, probably they recorded those cutscenes and that was that. They probably couldn't go back and
it feels like
there's
been some tweaking happening on the character models in-game, whereas the pre-rendered cutscenes are what they are. And
well, one thing I will say is, based upon what you said, it sounds like it's a fighting game that can appeal to both the noob and more expert players.
Yeah, I mean, it's accessible in that regard. I just don't know if much of it is going to draw a noob in or a Marvel fan in, because it's so much stuff with Capcom things that no one would necessarily know already. The writing is not good. Like, every line is either super cheesy or super predictable. Like, my girlfriend was I
couldn't believe it.
My girlfriend was guessing lines before they were said when she was watching me play. The voice acting's pretty good, but they can only do so much with the material they're given, They've got a great cast. Like, the cast is amazing, but, like, they just didn't give them anything to work with. Some of it's
Do you think this is going to be a game that's going to be big at EVO?
Well, it's going to be at EVO because Capcom's going to make sure it is.
Right,
but it's going to be big because there's going to be money to be won. That doesn't mean it's any good. I mean, people play what's there that the big prizes are there for.
Right.
So it'll be there, but like, I don't know if that means anything. I guess it just means that get Capcom supporting it with money, which, to be fair,
they're showing off the Infinity Stone.
Yeah, there's the Infinity Stone, the Space Stone, I think that is. So, I mean, at least Capcom will support it, or is it more you can say for something like Smash Brothers, what EVO Japan doesn't even have a prize because Nintendo's not supporting that.
Right. Well, Nintendo seems to want to do its own esports initiatives and doesn't really want to support sort of these independent tournaments as much, which is a shame. But
it just, like, it feels, to me, I mean, it's not bad. Like, it's not something I wish I could return or anything, because I'm a fan of the genre and I like the characters on both sides for the most part. I think the roster's too small. I think it looks
Well, yeah, isn't
ugly.
The biggest problem this game has is that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite 3, or Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Ultimate is out there? With this huge, massive roster of fighters.
I mean, that
looks...
There you saw the time gem. That was the green streak there was the time gem.
Which looks pretty much just as good as this game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the art style of 3 better than this for the most part. Although it's similar in a lot of ways, but there's a kind of a watercolor, kind of a Sumi-E look to 3 that I think works better than this.
Yeah.
And it's cool that they finally did a story mode, but like, and I realize like you can't do. I mean, the story is going to be fluff one way or the other just because of the nature of the premise, but like, there's got to be some better line. I mean,
good writing is good writing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. You pay for a great writer to write the script, or you don't. And if you don't, this is what you end up with.
And they're trying to kind of do the whole, the Marvel style sort of like quippy, some of the quippy, witty, illuminate somebody's character in 3 lines and their interaction with people in a casual hangout scene, but it's like just not really working.
It's just awkward, yeah.
And a couple of times, I still think the visual style and the cutscenes is very distracting. Like I can't pay attention to what Captain America is saying because I'm too distracted by his gigantic trapezius muscles. I mean, the man's shoulders are above his head.
Yeah.
Like it's very strange.
Yeah. Who would you recommend this game to, Matt? Or would you recommend that people wait for a price drop for this?
I feel like if you're not...
I mean, look, Q4 is coming up. People have to be really picky about where they spend their money here in the next couple months.
If it's something like you're kind of interested in, but you're not going to like play it, professionally or like in tournaments, or you don't have a group of friends that like everybody just loves playing Marvel with each other, like I would say, hang out, wait and see how it develops. Maybe pick up like a bundle with like a character pass later for like maybe $40 or $50, just because like I think I'd be more satisfied with it if the roster was more filled out. And right at the very least, I would wait for the first 6 character DLCs to be up and like kind of included in the package, because right now I'm playing the story mode that has those characters in it, and I'm just like, it just makes me angry.
Well, I guess,
and I don't know if that's a justifiable reaction to it, but it just feels like you're hanging Black Panther in front of me like that, and I'm just like, I want to play him, and you won't give him to me, but you'll still show him to me. Like it's some kind of ad in this game I already paid $60 for, and it annoys the hell out of me.
The other thing too is, I don't know if you saw today, but they're going to release Street Fighter V as a package,
which is they said they weren't going to do.
They did arcade edition with all the DLC wrapped into it. Initial pricing is only for Europe, €40 in Europe. For sure, it's going to come here. Mm-hmm. This is probably another game where you're going to eventually get.
Yeah, I would wait for that version of this game. Wait for them to finish the roster. Yeah. If I'm being honest, and there's been more like DLC leaks or whatever, data mining or whatever, and people have found there's an X-Men team apparently coming. Wolverine, basically the X-Men ban apparently from Marvel has been negotiated. So the X-Men characters that are the staples of this franchise that are missing sounds like they're coming back. There was another one I saw, which was like a Darkstalkers pack.
I mean, you think about it. Think about how many...
I think once you give this thing a few months of DLC expansions, get it for a good price, you got a pretty damn good roster there. But right now, it just feels like it still feels like you're buying an early access game, just like Street Fighter V. Yeah,
because I mean, you look at Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Ultimate and the roster there. I mean, all those characters are probably going to come to this. And then you look at this roster. There's 30, I think, characters in this. That's a lot of DLC characters coming.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they double that roster through DLC within the next year.
Which is
dirty. I mean, look, they're charging $30 for the next 6 characters. 30. That's $5. That's $5 a character, and yeah, you get a bunch of costumes in that, but who cares?
Who cares? Yeah. So I think we've come to the point where we're like, don't buy it.
Just wait and see what they do. I mean, that should be pretty much anyone's, MO for this after Street Fighter V. Yeah. If we're being honest. I hate to echo a Polygon article, but it's like the best reason not to. They said had an article. It's like the best reason not to pre-order Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is Street Fighter V.
Is Capcom.
And like. And
its track record.
And it's this is a more complete game than what launched with Street Fighter V, but it still feels kind of empty in terms of the roster's small. All you've got is the mission mode and a standard arcade mode and this story. And honestly, the individual character stories in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 were a little better in some way, because you only got really an ending with some text.
The bar is real low here. Let's just get that out of the way.
But the bar isn't really low in the sense that, like, NetherRealm is kicking your ass, Capcom.
I mean, comparing it to what NetherRealm's doing.
I mean, do I think Street Fighter V is better than Injustice 2 as a fighting game? Yes. But is Injustice 2 a better product? Absolutely, because Injustice 2 gives you tons of stuff to do. That story mode is great. The story, and that's the other thing that I was thinking is, because one of the things I compliment Injustice 2 for is it feels like watching one of the good DC animated movies.
Right.
And just it feels like it's on that level with like one of the, because all the DC animated movies are not good, but the Injustice games feel pretty much like one of the higher level good ones. Right. And that's cool.
And for a fighting game, I mean,
sure, of course. But the production value is good, and it's there, and it feels like watching an official DC product. And I was like, that's not how this feels. That's not how this Marvel. But then I remembered, like, because I was looking up the cast, and I realized all the Marvel characters, for the most part, are voiced by the same people who have voiced those characters in Marvel's cartoons. And this really does feel like an episode of one of those cartoons, and that is not a compliment to the game.
Yeah,
It's
I've tried to watch some, and
Marvel's
I get
animated
10
game
minutes in, and I'm out.
Yeah, Marvel's animated game is simply not on the level of DC's. And as someone who grew up a Marvel fan, and as someone who will always extol a lot of the Marvel stuff over DC, DC has always kicked their ass in cartoons and has continued to do so, and that shows no sign of abating. And in a way, that kind of makes the comparison between Injustice and this a fair one, because you're getting sort of this elevated version of both of those animated ideas, and they're not playing above their game on the Marvel side.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shortcoming that is a real thing, and something that's worth criticizing in a world where NetherRealm is churning these games out regularly, because they are changing, I think, what we should expect from a fighting game.
Oh, it has completely raised the bar, without a doubt. Yeah, the expectations for fighting games have gone through the roof at this point because of NetherRealm.
And clearly, this project did not have the budget to do something like this. This feels like a B game. This feels like a B-lister.
Which seems ridiculous, considering how big of a franchise this is.
But it's like, it always feels, the last two, this game and Marvel 3 has felt like we got them by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah.
Like, does Marvel even care about making video games? Does Disney even care about making video games? Because the answer to that periodically has been no.
Yeah.
Is Capcom up to making something on that ambition scale? And like, judging by Chun-Li's face, they barely made it. And it's I mean, I don't know. Like, it's not like I'm not enjoying it, and it's fun to see everybody, but like,
Capcom's in a bit of a rut. Right now it is thanking its lucky stars as Monster Hunter.
The other element of it is like, so many of these characters are returns from 3. Yeah. It's reuse of assets in a lot of ways. And like, you're only really getting like 3 or 4 new characters on each side, if that. And the new characters they chose are great. Like, Ultron's a cool addition. Captain Marvel's a great addition, although I think sometimes I feel like the only person who likes Captain Marvel. Jeddah is cool to see him again in 3D. It's great. But, like, it needs more. And, of course, it's getting more, but you have to pay more for that. So, again, it feels like just wait until the price evens out with what they're offering.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about, this is actually kind of a follow-up on a topic we discussed last week on the show, which was PewDiePie and the whole Firewatch dust-up. What happened was, after PewDiePie went through sort of the controversy, his fans went to Steam and essentially carpet-bombed the reviews for Firewatch. Literally just thousands and thousands and thousands of negative reviews. The game has been out now for, almost a year, I'm guessing?
Yeah, over a year, I think.
And so Valve has been trying to figure out what to do to avoid this. And the solution that it's come up with is that it is going to start... I guess at first it had a bunch of ideas, but the idea it eventually settled on is that going forward, there's going to be a graph. When you look at the Steam reviews for a game, you will be able to see a graph of when the reviews came in. So these people go to a game after the fact, carpet bomb the reviews, and lower the average or whatever. If you're a consumer going there, you'll be able to go there and see that, oh, well, this game's been out for 9 months, but a month ago, 10,000 people all showed up and gave it a 0.
Well, in this case, 1,100.
Right, yeah.
And it also shows like negative and it shows positive, and it's interesting to see on the graph for Firewatch. There's like that one day is like the huge negative, and the second day there's a huge positive because people who disagreed with them came back and carpet bombed it with positive.
With positive, yeah.
So now it's mixed.
Yeah. I think in the grand scheme of things, it ultimately didn't really affect the score of the game all that much. But Matt, do you think this was the right call? I think maybe a better tactic would be a month or 2 months after a game is released, you just chop off user reviews.
I don't think that works, because games can be updated and change a lot, and like certainly there have been times during
maybe it's 6 months.
I think it depends how. I mean, during Steam sales, even for older games, there have been times when like I can say, oh, maybe I'll buy this. It was actually one of the Lost Planet games. It was on sale, and I went to, I mean, that's like a 10-year-old game at this point. And I looked, I'm like, oh, but I always look at the reviews just to see if anybody's screaming about anything in particular. And there's a bunch of negative reviews on it about like, this doesn't work. Like, the PC port is terrible. Don't buy this. It never gets support. And like, if those reviews hadn't still been there years later, I wouldn't have seen that, and I would have bought a shitty port. So I don't think having a cutoff for that is the right way. I mean, this seems like a decent kind of solution. I don't know how you stop
Look,
people
we
from
know
being
Valve
jerks.
thought long and hard about this.
Yeah.
It does with every decision it makes.
mean,
But it doesn't always make the right decision.
Right,
either.
but this also, I mean, this gives you the information. You can do with that information what you need to do with it. Like, more information is better than less information. And I think cutting off reviews at a certain point is less information.
That's accurate. I mean, one thing I would say about
Well, thank you.
one thing I would say about Steam is that if you look at the reviews on there, you very rarely see a game that has an overall negative score.
Usually it has to be broken.
Yeah. I mean, generally, almost every game is classified as mostly positive reviews.
Yeah. Although very positive, mostly positive. I don't always know which of those is better.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, usually, because also, like, I think, there's that kind of, rule of thumb, like, for every negative response, assume 100 more people think that. For every positive response, assume 1,000 more people think that, because you're less likely to say something if you're happy.
Than complain about it.
But I think on Steam there are a lot of positive reviews that people write just because people try to help games they like get more visibility. So there's a little bit of that happening. But when you see something really super negative, there's two things that are super negative. Either the game is broken, or the game deals in subject matter that people don't like.
Right.
And that can be anything. I've seen it for people's like, oh, this game promotes diversity, and we hate that. Or this game, this game is sexist, and we don't like that. Like those are the negative stuff tends to come from
people who are viewing games culturally.
Yeah, a cultural criticism, or the game doesn't work.
It's broken.
Physically doesn't work. And for me, all the review bullshit is worth it for me to be able to have those moments where I'm thinking about a game and you look down in the reviews and it's like, this game doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's like that's an important feat, because the patch notes in the game itself sure won't tell you.
I mean, would a game work and then 6 months later not work?
Yeah, patches have broken things.
Yeah,
for sure.
But don't they fix that though?
Not always.
Really?
Capcom didn't fix Lost Planet.
Wow.
Still didn't work.
Wow. Well, the sales were probably so low that it just felt like it wasn't worth it. I guess.
But like that still counts.
Yeah.
Like and you never know, these indie companies could go out of business. There's no reason to have a cutoff for when things like that can happen. And this, as long as you've got that thing up that tells you, gives you a little more information about why there's this blitz of negative reviews.
Do you think people are going to look at these charts though? I mean,
yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
Like it's right there when you scroll down to where the purchase thing is. You have to see the chart to get to the reviews.
I realize that, but I just think a lot of people are just going to brush it off and not even really pay attention to it.
All right, well, there's people who won't, and that's a valuable thing to them. Like, if you're going to be an idiot, what can you do? You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
It's not necessarily that people are being idiots. They may just not have time to sit there and pore over user reviews on Steam. I mean, everyone has different amounts of available time.
Right. Well, if you're going to make your basic decision on an aggregate that sits up there and just has one descriptor up there and never look beyond that, then if you're going to say, hey, this game has negative reviews, but not wonder what the negative reviews are, again, I can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. Like that's a ridiculously shallow way of going about, taking feedback into account.
Matt, what do you think about sort of the base issue here of people retaliating for things they don't like and carpet bombing review scores?
It's stupid, but people do it all the time. It's not like,
Do they do it all the time?
Oh, yeah. On the internet, sure.
I think that might be something that I don't think it's all that common.
Oh, it's super common. Have you ever been on the internet? Like,
Never.
Constantly.
Never. What's it like?
Constantly. Constantly, man. Like, I've seen it on, like, Deadspin articles on when they said a bad thing about the Patriots or something. Just like you get carpet
that's
bombs.
Comments, but actually going to like a review site or a review aggregator site and taking that effort to go there.
Oh, that's half the problem at places like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. Like that happened last year with Batman vs. Superman when all the critics gave it negative reviews and fans blitzed the user review thing and pumped the score up to like 9 out of 10.
But the critic reviews and user reviews are separate on those sites.
Well, there's no critic reviews on Steam. I'm just making a comparison.
Right.
Like people if they feel like this thing they like has been impugned, will often organize. They don't even necessarily organize. There's a lot of people have the same idea and they go do this thing. And it's like if you have a fan base as big as PewDiePie does, inevitably out of those 50-some million people, a few thousand of them are going to do something like this.
Yeah, I was surprised at how little feedback we got from PewDiePie fans from our episode last week on YouTube. I thought somebody would catch wind of it and it would get carpet bombed like Steam did.
Well, they've got a lot to do right now, so we're kind of small fish in that regard.
But still, there's that hive mind. One person sees it and then they go to whatever.
Yeah, I have expected something like that, but it's like, I mean, there's only so many things you can do in a week.
Yeah.
And they've been, I'm sure they've been, blitzing a bunch of other YouTubers who have disagreements with them and all that stuff. But I mean, it's not a surprising thing really to me. And
what do they really think that they're accomplishing? Do you think they're really trying to keep people from buying the game, or do you think it's just their way to make a statement about it?
There's a little bit of both. I mean, I read a lot of the negative reviews. And,
you did?
Yeah, I looked through it. And some of them are just like, screw these guys for censoring whatever, which is not what censoring is in any way, shape, or form. But that's cool, but no one knows what that means anymore, apparently. But there were also reviews that were from the same day that didn't mention PewDiePie, didn't mention censorship, didn't mention the DMCA takedown. They were just like, longish, a few paragraphs, capsule reviews about why they didn't like the game.
Like, do you think they were legitimate reviews?
I think they were legitimate reasons to not like the game.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's a matter of opinion. If you think the writing in the game sucks, which I don't think it does, but I mean, if you do, what am I going to tell you? It's definitely a slow-paced game. If you're expecting something different, then you're not going to get it. And the ending is a bit of a swerve in terms of kind of narrative expectations. So.
Yeah.
On one hand, I thought that was really brilliant, a really brilliant way to close the game out. But I can see why someone who wanted something a little more conventional might come away from that being dissatisfied. And some of those negative reviews, while clearly they waited until this happened as the impetus to say, I'm finally going to put up a negative review about this, I found a couple of the negative reviews were actually pretty well reasoned.
Right. Okay.
So a couple people clearly just disagree with what the developer did in the takedown,
and they hadn't put up their review
decided
until...
that was the thing that prodded them to finally put up their negative opinion.
Got ya.
And maybe they were copy and pasting or using bullet points from some organization location or whatever.
Or they could have just went to Metacritic, found
somewhere,
negative reviews, and copied and pasted them from there.
But somewhere all the way back, someone had actual cogent negative thoughts about this game, and they got translated.
Look, it's not infallible, that game.
Right.
I mean, it's certainly open to criticism. So,
but I'm just saying, next time maybe spread it out over a month or something,
so it doesn't look so obvious.
But it's like, I'm certainly not going to say the game is flawless, and there are people I would not recommend it to.
Oh, for sure.
But that doesn't make all this, the blitzing thing useful.
Yeah.
It's also not. I mean, stuff's going to happen. There's only like 1,100 people, at least that first day. Which is not a huge number of people. They're just loud.
Well, also when you consider how many people are subscribers to PewDiePie on YouTube,
right?
It's like less than like
nothing.
It's like 1/1,000,000th of a percent or something.
Yeah, it's
like
that.
It literally might be like one.
It's like dropping a penny on the street.
It's like, yeah. So maybe in the grand scheme of things, this isn't such a big problem.
Right, but also just on that game, also that's not a lot of people are writing reviews for Firewatch at this point, a year on. It's not a tremendously, hugely trafficked game, I wouldn't think. Certainly I haven't gone back to it in a while because you play it once and you're kind of done.
Yeah.
Unless you want to go back and get all the little collectible things. So of course it raises a visibility thing there because it's the most activity that's been on that store page for probably like 8 months.
I mean, the irony here is that it could actually work out in the game's favor because it might bubble up through various databases so that people are exposed to the game again.
I actually went and found somebody on my friends list who had it wishlisted and bought it for them.
Yeah.
Because I already have it, so it didn't do me any good.
You also wonder, too, if through this whole
I felt the need to support them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you may wonder, like, through this whole controversy, if it actually might help them because some people maybe on the other side and maybe taking a stand by saying, well, you know what? I'm going to buy this game now and help these guys because they stood up for what they believed in or whatever.
If they were smart, they put it on sale.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
If they put it like half price or something like that. Yeah.
I bet yeah. I don't know what I was going to say there. That's all, folks.
All right, on that note, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the Switch. First thing I want to say, though, before we get into the actual topic we're going to discuss is I mentioned on the show a few weeks ago that my right Joy-Con had died. So my left had already been replaced because I had a defective one right out of the gate. And then my right one just stopped connecting altogether. I got my...
And I confirmed that.
Yeah, and you confirmed it.
It's not your Switch. It's that Joy-Con.
Matt, I already got my new Joy-Con.
Oh, wow.
And when did you give it back to me?
Friday.
Friday.
Or Saturday.
Saturday. No, Friday.
When did we do the show? Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Friday.
Friday, and then I couldn't ship it out until Monday. So I took it to UPS on Monday. I got it back this morning.
Wow.
So, major
is it the
props.
same one, or is it a new one?
It's a new one. Yeah, they just replaced it. So major props to Nintendo.
And does it work?
I haven't even tried it. Like I was prepping for the show, and it was a mad scramble because it's kind of like a last minute thing. So I didn't have enough time to check it out. I snapped it on so it could charge. But regardless, Nintendo, awesome customer service. Literally, think about that. Sent out on Monday. I got it Wednesday morning, the new one.
Yeah, they must have sent it as soon as they saw confirmation of shipment.
I guess so. Like, I guess maybe they know that it's a known problem and they just assumed.
Yeah, well, did they send you a shipping label or anything to send it back? Or
yeah, so they email it to you. So when you call Nintendo customer service, they then send you an email.
Right. So
with
when you send it to drop it off, they process it and they know it's notification is coming, so they shipped out your replacement.
That could very well be. Yeah,
I think that's good customer service.
It's excellent customer service. Like amazing, like Amazon level customer service. So very happy with that. But now we try to butter it up a little bit before we dig into some of the problems with Switch. And one that's becoming more and more apparent by literally the day is the storage issues on the Switch. So first it started coming out like, oh, there may be some features of NBA 2K and FIFA that you can't play just using the cart.
Right.
That you're going to need a micro SD card to get all those features. And then to me, kind of the deal breaker this week was finding out that some features of Super Mario Odyssey are going to be cut as well, unless you have a micro SD card.
And it does not come with the card, right? You have to buy that separate.
Oh yeah, you have to buy the card.
I know. I think I have one. Do I have one? I can't remember if I bought one.
I don't know.
I think I do.
I can't read your mind or look at your bank account, but Matt, how big of a problem is this? Like,
well, I mean, it's.
I think
shitty.
Doom as well. Doom's another game.
Doom's entire multiplayer is not on the cartridge.
You have to download it. The other problem too is that NBA 2K18 takes up like 60% of the onboard Switch storage. Mm-hmm. So chances are, if you have a couple games on your Switch, your hard drive's already full.
Yeah.
So unless you want to delete those off and then re-download them later, what was Nintendo thinking with this, Matt?
They're trying to keep costs down. That's all.
But flash memory has become so cheap.
These aren't so cheap, really, but at least...
Well, because they're the micro SD cards. Yeah, I mean, a normal flash drive with that much space is way cheaper.
It's better than the Vita, which is trying to sell you proprietary crap for obscene amounts of money, which, by the way, still costs that much.
I know.
It's still 60-some bucks for even the medium-sized ones.
I know.
Which I think was part of the downfall of that system.
But that's what makes it more puzzling to me, is Nintendo doesn't have any skin in the game to make money off of these cards. Mm-hmm. I just don't get it. I have no idea. I mean, that was one of the biggest complaints about the Wii U, a 30-gig hard drive.
Yep.
When your competitors have a terabyte or 2 terabytes. And now Nintendo's saying, oh, well, now you need to buy this micro SD card to get all the features of a game. I mean, think about how many people now are going to go buy a micro SD card for Super Mario Odyssey. It's arguably the biggest, or at least the second biggest game for Switch.
I don't know.
I mean, you're right. I'm
going
to have to go buy one.
Yeah.
I am going to have to go buy one. I have one for my GoPro, but it's like I don't want to keep popping cards in and out of like my GoPro and put it in.
Well, and you have to reformat probably. Depending.
Like for the 3DS, like I do use like the same SD card in my 3DS that I use in other things, and it will work without being formatted. So I can plug it into my 3DS, and it'll read everything on there, and then I can use it in my camera or whatever else, and it's okay.
Well, that's handy at least.
Yeah. So, but still, it's like you don't want to keep switching your cards back and forth. I just don't get it. Nintendo should have seen all this coming. It should have known. And I'm surprised we didn't have this problem with Zelda.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they made sure there was enough onboard memory for Zelda, because you gotta launch with a good impression in that regard.
Yeah.
But that's why I can't remember if I have one, because I don't know if I've needed one yet. Because I only have Zelda and Mario Rabbids. Those are the only 2 games I own. So I haven't had storage has not been an issue for me yet.
I had to delete stuff to download Rabbids. Finally.
Mine is a cartridge, so I don't know if it downloaded anything. I'm sure it's still installed some things.
Yeah.
So storage hasn't been an issue for me, but that's mainly because I've only bought 2 games.
Right. Yeah.
At some point, so by the end of the year, I will probably have at least 3. Well, yeah, I'll have 3 at least because I'll have Mario.
The other problem,
and Xenoblade. So
yeah.
I bet Xenoblade will have.
It'll probably
something.
take up the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is that maybe it's not such a big issue now because a lot of Switch owners probably have 1 or 2 games at this point. Their memory maybe isn't full. But you start looking at the third-party stuff, which surprisingly is starting to come now, which I'm kind of shocked by. But you have Wolfenstein 2 and Doom coming to Switch. These third parties are used to publishing games on Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. They're not going to make special considerations for Switch versions of their games and say, oh, we don't want to make our users buy a micro SD card.
Well, I'm doubly interested because, at least on PC and I think PS4, Doom is a gigantic install.
It is a big download, yeah. I think it was the last time when I deleted it off of my hard drive on PS4, I think it was up to like 40-some gigs.
Yeah, on my PC, I think it's like 80.
Yeah.
It's like,
the textures
are huge and all. It's going to not be like that on the Switch, but no, it'll be an ongoing struggle. I mean, look, I put a 2 terabyte hard drive in my PS4, and it's almost full.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, my hard drive on my PS4, I'm always taking stuff off to add something, and it's huge compared to Switch. Do you think Nintendo will finally relent and at some point release a version of Switch that has a bigger hard drive on it?
Probably not. Like, it depends what the permutations would be. I mean,
like,
I could see it. I could see it if they release a Switch that is just console.
Yeah.
If they did like a handheld only one and a console centric one, and the console one has a lot of memory and doesn't really go anywhere, and the handheld one doesn't, I guess. I don't know. It is short-sighted, and it's like clearly there's supposed to be portability. Also, would seem to indicate you would want stuff to be pre-installed as much as you could, as opposed to having to drag cartridges around with you. And obviously they're very small, but that's also kind of an argument against them because you could lose them.
Right.
Then again, they also want to sell you cases, so who knows? But in terms of, and they had to know storage was going to become a problem given what they're trying to put on this thing. Yeah. Versus the storage space that's on those cartridges, or the cards, I guess they are now. So I don't know. I mean, I guess
I think
in the end they're thinking they want to sell this thing for $300, and that's the end of it.
I think Nintendo will eventually release a Switch with more storage. Like the Wii U.
If they can get the cost of manufacturing the Switch down enough, I could see that. But you'd probably be keeping the price the same.
Exactly. I think that's what will happen. They'll keep the price the same. It'll come out a year from now, but it'll have more hard drive space. Yeah. And that's where they're saying...
something will come pre-installed on. Like Zelda will become pre-installed on.
Maybe. But it's like, I don't think it's fair to compare what Nintendo did with the Wii U to what it is going to do with Switch. Because, I mean... To be perfectly honest, the Wii U was a failure pretty much right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. The writing was on the wall almost immediately. Nintendo knew it. So it didn't shock me all that much that Nintendo didn't create like a DX version of the Wii U or buff out the storage on it. It just didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the clear-cut sign the Wii U was not going anywhere was that they never revamped the gamepad at all. Yeah. Like, I think we would have gotten new versions or new iterations of that hardware design if the Wii U had been successful.
Agreed. Yeah. So it was a lost cause.
Needed it.
Yeah.
Too.
Because generally what you do when you try to predict the future, which obviously we're not psychic, you try to look at past data, what happened in the past, and then try to formulate your hypothesis based upon that. But in this case, I don't think the old data is really a good model to use. No. To project what's going to happen with Switch.
No, it's not. I mean, also, like, I don't even know if the Wii U got a second revision, really.
No, it never did.
It basically I think they still working through their first production run, basically.
Yeah, it did not go well.
Whereas the Switch, they're going to have, same reason we got all those candy-colored N64s is they had to keep making tons of them.
Yeah. And I think, for us, it sucks that we have to buy a micro SD card to play, to get all the features of these games. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that.
But I mean, the
bigger concern, I think, is the casual folks, though, who are going to buy these games and be like, wait a minute, why can't I play this mode in NBA 2K18?
I mean, people bought memory cards for many years. PlayStation 2 sold...
It's been a long time,
$100-some million units with the stupid little memory cards.
Yeah. It's been a long time, though. It's a whole new generation of people who never have ever used memory cards.
I guess.
I mean, Xbox 360 was probably the last console that even kind of used them.
Yeah. I mean, look, if the Switch's biggest problem ends up being I have too many games to fit on my tiny memory card, like that's a pretty good problem to have, in all things considered, compared to their last system.
Really though, when you're only talking about that limited amount of storage on the console,
I don't think it's gonna.
I mean, that's one game
tremendous.
for PS4 or Xbox One.
You can buy big SD cards.
Yeah, I'm saying like the onboard memory.
Well,
what comes installed.
No one's going to sit with the onboard memory. If you're going to really build a library of these things, you're going to need a bigger. I mean, you're going to need a bigger hard drive for just about any of these consoles.
So doesn't that mean that the real cost now of Switch is like $350?
More, I mean, well, okay, more like $400 because you're probably going to buy Zelda.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean. I mean,
to have a fully functioning system, I mean, that's really what it is now.
Well, it depends. I mean, I don't think you need to buy that card immediately, or you didn't at launch. Maybe, and I don't know what the deal is with Odyssey. If it's like, if you don't have a card at all, those features won't work. It won't work with the internal memory at all because the internal memory is not robust enough. Is that the?
Yeah, I don't think it does. I think those features just don't work. They're just disabled unless you have.
What are they, like the photo mode?
The photo mode is part of it. I don't know what the other.
Look, as long as they're not locking one of the worlds out.
Right.
You know, they're luxury items, I guess.
It just seems very un-Nintendo to me.
Well, I think Nintendo's finding their feet in this brave new world of functioning online chat, and
it had it's had more than ample opportunity.
It's had 15 years, but like it's Nintendo moves how Nintendo moves.
Mysterious ways, yeah.
Yeah, baffling ways sometimes.
So we'll see. I mean, I do think that
in the end, I think
there will be a new version.
I think people want a Mario game more than they want to save $30 on a memory card,
and more than they want to take photos of said Mario game.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, if the man's gonna
cut something,
the man's gonna take his shirt off. You're gonna have to pay a premium.
There you go. All right, let's move on.
Mario don't go with full Monty for free.
All right, next we're gonna talk about a game.
Spent a long time waxing his chest.
Yeah. Instead of talking about a system that was doomed from the start, we're going to talk about a game now that was doomed from the start. That game is Battleborn.
Boy, was it.
And boy, was it. It was announced this week that Battleborn, once its latest update goes live, that's it. Gearbox is chopping it off.
So it lasted, what was that? Like
pretty much a year
and
exactly. Yeah, I think it's for pretty much a year.
Didn't it come out before Overwatch?
It came out almost exactly at the same time as Overwatch.
Yeah, so their next update is their last one.
Right.
So that's like a year and a half.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Wow.
Yeah, well. I mean, you got to know when to hold them and
when to fold them. Know when to walk away. Know when to run.
And that last part is probably what you should do from Battleborn if you're.
Well, I think people did already, and that's the problem.
Although not as much as people ran from Lawbreakers.
Yeah.
That boggles my mind.
Yeah, I'm still pretty
more people
perplexed.
are playing Battleborn than are playing Lawbreakers.
That is pretty crazy. When there's a game like Overwatch on the market that is more closely resembles Battleborn than it does Lawbreakers.
Yeah, I mean, Battleborn is more of a straight MOBA from a different perspective as opposed to Overwatch was a character shooter. So, they're compared because they have a art style that sort of invites it. But when you play the two of them, I don't think there's a ton of overlap in terms of like kind of meta. Also, I can't remember anybody in Battleborn except the guy with the tiny head.
I don't remember their names. I remember some of the character designs only because they were really ugly and weird.
Right.
Not because I liked them. But like the mushroom guy, like I remember him.
Oh yeah, I guess I remember the mushroom guy. I guess I should look at the footage here and see if I. Yeah, I remember the tiny head guy.
Big body, tiny head guy. Yeah, I mean the character designs. It's a character-driven game. All MOBAs are. Character designs in this are better than Lawbreakers, but not much. Not by much.
Yeah, I mean, I can at least remember Tiny Head Guy, whereas in Lawbreakers, there's the guy who looks like he's from Unreal Tournament, and the girl who looks like she's from Unreal Tournament, and the other guy who looks like he's from Unreal Tournament.
But he's got a bandana.
Yes. And the one guy who looks like he's from Unreal Tournament, but he has no sleeves.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an actual character in it with
guy,
no sleeves.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a real character, but I bet he is.
I bet it is, for sure. Matt, why do you think... Because, look, here's one thing I would say about MOBAs. Pretty much all MOBAs need to be free-to-play. Mm-hmm. Because the leader in the space is free-to-play.
Right. And look, at a certain point, Battleborn practically was.
It is. It kind of is already. And that's what my question is getting at, is why do you think free-to-play did not work for this game? And do you think it's going to work for Lawbreakers? Because eventually we all know Lawbreakers is going to go free-to-play.
I think it didn't work for Battleborn because no one most people I don't think want to play that genre from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because the overarching strategy of the MOBA is way more interesting when you can see the damn battlefield.
No, you're right. That is a big problem.
And I'm not even a MOBA player, and even I know that.
Yeah.
And I didn't make a video game that defied those kind of those. I mean, I guess somebody had to try it, right?
Yeah.
But and it didn't have any kind of overarching thing that could kind of create that strategy. Like something like I remember when this game launched, I mentioned Savage.
Yeah.
Which they actually did do a remastered version that no one gave a shit about, and then they abandoned it so hopefully nobody paid $20 for that. But Savage was an old like 2002, 3 in there, and it was basically like you ran around as a character in a 3D world and stuff, but it was an RTS essentially. It predated MOBAs, so they couldn't do that yet. But it was close. So one player on the team was the commander, and that player saw like a top-down map of everything, could see what was happening, and could click and direct the other players who were in the map to do this or do that. And so like if you were in the map, you'd see like a big tower of light or whatever that said like go here and do this or whatever, and you didn't have to do it. So it was kind of annoying if you're the commander and nobody was following your commands. You might lose just because no one was paying attention to you.
Right.
But it was an interesting way to kind of get the strategy of the RTS in a game where you played on a more ground level soldier idea. And without that meta, and I think Battlefield tried something similar with that kind of second screen Battlefield Commander like app thing.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Where you call in strikes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Battleborn, and again, that didn't help those other games gain any traction, so it probably wouldn't have helped Battleborn. Battleborn doesn't even have that going for it.
Here's the thing for me that kind of throws a wrench into that way of thinking is Paladins. So Paladins, free to play, first-person MOBA-ish shooter, a lot like Overwatch. It is doing great. It has like 6 million players that are playing it right now. Mm-hmm. Do you think, Matt, that it's more of an issue of it's really difficult to change the messaging after you've launched?
That could be.
Because it's like
First impressions count for a lot in games.
In everything.
In everything, but especially look at No Man's Sky. Look how hard it's been to
recover.
To give that another chance. And people have given that another chance, I think, in large degree. The reviews on Steam, to go back to that, the reviews on Steam have definitely gone up and become a more positive thing, which is kind of nice to see that people will look at something again. Yeah. But I don't think...
Well, one, look at it again. Yeah. Two, and then go back and reward it for being improved.
But I don't think Battleborn ever basically rectified itself. The changes to No Man's Sky have been pretty drastic. And Battleborn...
Just changed its revenue model.
Yeah, changed the revenue model and just sort of kept on keeping on. And
I think
I never bought it, except I got it in a Humble Bundle at one point, and like for nothing. It was like in the $5 tier or something a couple months after it came out. I'm like, oh, I guess I could play that, and I never did.
Yeah,
I have it installed. I've never opened it.
The other problem too is that marketing budget for that game is all front loaded. So when the game comes out, the publisher blows its load on marketing right out of the gate. It doesn't budget a ton of money to then go out and market and say, hey, now you can play this for free. It basically counts on us, other publications, YouTube, to spread the word that something is free to play. It relies on social media for fans to spread the word. So a lot of people who maybe wrote this game off initially saying, oh, it seems like a risky game to buy at full price, right at launch. A lot of those people have no idea that this game eventually became free to play.
Also, I only played the beta or the demo or whatever that happened right before it came out.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like it felt good to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt weird and clunky, and the hits had very little impact, and there was no meat on it. And
my biggest issue, and I am someone who plays MOBAs. I play a lot of League. I've played a ton of Dota. I've played some Heroes of the Storm. I think you hit the nail on the head right out of the gate when you said that it's the perspective that you play from. What a lot of people don't realize with MOBAs is they're essentially like a permutation of RTS games. Mm-hmm. It's a more active RTS game with multiple people playing together. And you're absolutely right. You need to see the lay of the land at all times. Like just seeing if someone's coming to gank you. When you're playing from a first-person perspective or a tight third-person perspective, you cannot see what people in other lanes are doing. And if people are grouping together and starting to come all down to the bot lane to gank you or whatever, it loses an element of the game that I think is really enjoyable from MOBAs, and two, it makes it more difficult to play well. So I think you were right the first time. I think really it's the perspective of the game that really made the big difference. I mean, and look, there are other... Smite is very similar to Battleborn, and it seems to be doing fine. I haven't enjoyed Smite, though, for the very same reasons I didn't really like Battleborn. So,
yeah, and I also think there's sort of the standard issue, like, there's resentment in the gaming community against Gearbox.
There is a deep underlying anger
for some pretty good reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Aliens...
but you know what? They're going to all forgive when Borderlands 3 comes out.
Borderlands 3 comes out, it's all not going to matter anymore.
Nope. They won't care anymore.
But until then,
which, honestly, if you're looking for a silver lining, if anyone even cares that this game is going away, if you're looking for a silver lining in all this, it's that Gearbox has said all the people who are, or maybe this isn't good, all the people who are working on Battleborn are now moving over to Borderlands 3 to ramp up production. So, do you want people from Battleborn working on Borderlands?
As long as they don't turn Battleborn into a MOBA.
I'm joking.
But like, I think I'm very curious what Borderlands 3 will look like in today's world.
Seriously.
Because in this world of games as a service, games as a platform, pay money for loot boxes, it seems like you could ruin that game real easy.
The other concern...
by going too far over that line.
The other concern is one of the major sort of complaints about NBA 2K18 is how it's handling microtransactions. So 2K is starting to get a little dirty with how it's starting to do this stuff.
And I don't know if I trust Gearbox to push back on the dirty.
I don't think anybody does. So
and the other thing I thought was interesting, I think a couple events or something ago, I read something where Randy Pitchford, the head of Gearbox, said that the art style of Borderlands limited their audience, which makes me wonder if they're going to change the art style to something.
Limited their audience? The game was a huge hit.
He said,
what's he talking about?
He said something about, like, I don't remember the actual words, and if I misread it, I'm sure.
What, he thinks it needs to be like realistic?
But basically, the implication seemed to be that, like, because it was cartoony, some people would never give it a chance, which is a weird thing to say about a game that I think sold real damn well.
What about Overwatch?
Right.
Only 30 or 40 million people.
So I'm curious if they'll keep the art style. I hope they do, because I like the art style of Borderlands. But
I don't know. I was kind of split on it. I wasn't a huge fan.
It looks different. It looks like
Borderlands.
You
know it as soon as you see it what the game is. I'll give you it that much. But I wasn't a big fan of it. Like, I would not.
I mean, to be fair, I know Battleborn when I see it too, because I'm just like, what the hell is that? Oh, it's Battleborn.
That goofy character.
Yeah.
But you're right. It will be interesting to see kind of everything Gearbox has been up to over the last
Watch them just take
3
all
years.
the Battleborn characters and make them the new classes.
That would be a huge mistake. I don't think even they're that dumb. So
you'd hope.
Think we'll be seeing the new Gearbox game before the end of the year, maybe at the Game Awards, or
probably an outside chance at the Game Awards, because I feel like after what happens with Battleborn here, if you're Gearbox, I feel like you probably want to like get back on your track.
So we still have that. We still have Paris Games Week. We still have PlayStation Experience in Anaheim. There's 3 more chances.
It wouldn't surprise me if we saw some kind of like a quick teaser of, just a skag getting run over by something.
And the reason I bring that up,
they all open.
And the reason I bring that up is because I wanted to segue into the next topic, which is Tokyo Game Show, which was also, actually still is, one of the last remaining big game shows for 2017. Sony kicked things off early, as it always does. It had its press conference starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. And essentially, like it always does this, it has its press conference, and the show doesn't actually start for like another 4 days.
Couple days, yeah.
I always viewed that as like both a blessing and a curse when I went to cover TGS.
Yeah.
Because
it meant we had to be there way earlier.
Right.
But also meant we had to be there a lot longer.
Right, yeah. And so you would get there on like Saturday or whatever, then you go do Sony's press conference, and you'd have like that buffer 3 days where you do pre-production and get ready for your shoots and everything, but also it gives you some time to go see Tokyo a little bit. So we're kind of in that middle area right now, waiting for TGS to kick off. But Sony had its I wouldn't even call it a big press conference.
It was big in terms of presentation.
Presentation, budget, the time they spent on it.
I mean, they wrote songs for this.
Yes. They made like 2 or 3 music videos for this press conference. Do you think maybe the focus was a little misplaced, though, ultimately, in the content that was shown in the press conference?
I mean, it seemed about right for the audience.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's Tokyo Games. It's for Japan.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, they spent 3 minutes on a frickin' visual novel dating game. I mean, a big trailer. I'm just like, okay. I mean, that sells there.
But if you look at the Japanese market right now, Sony is getting its butt kicked by Nintendo week after week after week after week. Switch is doubling the sales of PS4 right now. And granted, PS4 had a big lead, but if you look at the sales of Switch based upon when it started up to its first 6 months or whatever, it's destroying PlayStation 4.
Nintendo rules that country.
It doesn't, though. It's only ruled with handhelds before, and Switch is
now Switch is a handheld. And also look at the Super Famicom Classic pre-orders started this week. There are 800 people in line at one store in Tokyo.
Yeah.
I mean, Nintendo, the Nintendo nostalgia is strong wherever you go, but in Japan, I think it's extra strong.
For its handheld, I mean, its consoles have not done well for a long
Super
time.
Famicom was back when last time they did well.
That's what I'm saying.
But I think the Nintendo's the Switch is, I think, not unfair to see it as a return to form in a lot of ways, especially considering we're getting a Zelda and a Mario in 1 year.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, Sony's got what to offer in exchange? Nothing.
It just seems like Sony had the opportunity to show a lot better games, or even debut some games, and it chose not to. Code Vein?
I don't think that's going to be a game changer by any means.
Well, I think the problem is that Sony chose to focus on games that were exclusives only to PlayStation platforms. It didn't want to include any multi-platform games, although there were a couple that are also coming to PC.
I mean, if they really wanted to make a splash, they should have shown From's new game, whatever that is.
But apparently it's not ready.
It's not. Yeah, it's never going to be ready.
Yeah.
So you maybe the Game Awards? Probably there's no way. I don't think they.
I know a lot of people were hoping for Bloodborne 2 or something along those lines.
Bloodborne 2 doesn't exist.
Yeah, I don't believe it does either. But a lot of people were hoping for that. I saw a lot of comments.
Yeah, well,
on
apparently
Sifted.
people were hoping for Sonic Adventure 3 too, but I don't know what the hell you're talking. I mean, really?
Which is not happening. Thank God. So
we're gonna. I'm at it. We're Streets of Rage 4. Like, what is?
So we're going to run through what they did show. And I think once we start going down through these, and you'll see some of the games that we have to talk about because we're trying to have a show here, you'll see what I'm talking about. That it could have done a lot better. Probably the biggest game that was announced, and it was leaked earlier in the day, or actually the day before, Final Fantasy IX for the PlayStation 4.
I wouldn't consider that the biggest game, but for me.
Well, we'll keep trucking, and you can tell me what you think ultimately is. Final Fantasy IX for PlayStation 4, it's already kind of made the rounds. It's been released for Android and PC. By all accounts, this looks to be the PC version released.
Yeah, I think it is definitely the PC version. Because it came out and people played it in its PC version. It does still have the weird music bug that Final Fantasy VII does on the PS4, which is also the PC version ported over. And the PC versions of these games do not have this bug, which is that when you get in a random battle and you come out of it, the music track for the area you're in restarts. So you basically have to hear the first few bars of the music over and over and over and over again, which is not how the original was. It's not how the PC version is. Nobody knows why they won't fix it. Apparently, the supposed fix for it is to just turn random battles off, because that is an option in these versions of the games. Final Fantasy X on PS4 also had this bug, but they fixed it, and nobody knows why they fixed it on that, but didn't fix it on 7. So that's weird.
That is weird,
especially because music is such a huge component of why people like these games.
Yeah.
But so that's a warning if you were thinking about buying this. If that's a thing to you, be advised.
One thing I would say is that this Final Fantasy is one of the last ones I wholeheartedly loved.
I didn't love it, but I liked it. It's the best Final Fantasy on PS1, I would say.
That's a bold statement.
I don't think it is at all, because I think 7 and 8 are garbage. So. I like elements of 7 and 8. But 9 is the only one I would say I really liked and would play again. This
is the last one I really kind of fell head over heels for in the lineage of the franchise.
Well, I like this one because it was a bit of a throwback to the Super Nintendo ones, with the crystals are back and the job classes kind of and all that stuff. And it's got a pretty good story until it forgets it. Somewhere around the
they're so awkward.
Somewhere around the third disc, because Vivi, the Black Mage character here, has the most interesting character arc of any Final Fantasy character to this point in the series.
Yeah.
And around the third disc, they just sort of stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And also Steiner, the knight guy, who's like the guardian, like he just stops having dialogue.
No,
like,
there's a lot of weird.
The story
things
just goes
about it,
away, and then they fight the last guy and beat him, and then they're like, "Hey, why don't we go kill Death?" And they do, and that's the last disc. They do that. It has nothing to do with anything. It's so damn weird.
It is weird how it wraps up.
And
but I enjoyed pretty much the entire lead up to that.
Well, the gameplay is good. That's the thing, is the gameplay is interesting and good, and it brings back a lot of classic Final Fantasy stuff that it was in terms of like game systems that were not there in the Materia and the Junction systems in 7 and 8.
Yep.
And that was nice. And music solid as it always. I mean, look, I think Final Fantasy 7 has an amazing composition, and then they ruined it with all the screeching MIDI in the actual game. But this
which
game,
they didn't have to.
They didn't have to do. I mean, no, 8 was great.
Why.
I mean, and this is a really solid soundtrack. This is some really solid character design. It was nice in the era of post Final Fantasy VII Cloud nonsense to get a main character who really enjoyed the adventure, because there was sort of this trend after Cloud and Squall to have sort of this thing where it's like everyone was mopey and weird and didn't want to do what we were all here to do. And like, Zidane is sort of like thinks it's awesome. Yeah. And he's a crazy monkey boy. He wants to go do shit. And it's like, and I enjoyed that. It was like, people were excited to be on an adventure again. It's like, it usually you had to find like Skies of Arcadia to feel that, in the wake of Final Fantasy VII's influence.
Yep.
You're right. I haven't bought this yet, but
it is out. That's the crazy thing. They announce it,
and then it's boom, there it is.
It's like, here's the debut trailer and the launch trailer all at once.
Go buy it right now.
Yeah,
for a discount even.
Yeah, is it coming? I think it's only digital now. Does it come out on disc later?
I'd be surprised if it came out on disc.
Yeah,
it's not because it's not like Final Fantasy X where it was a full kind of remaster remake thing. It's just like, here's a port of the PC version.
Yeah, so I highly recommend it. I don't know how some of you guys may have got into gaming a little later.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't played it, you should play it. But I would argue that if you have a PC capable of running it, and almost everybody does, you should get it on Steam because the music bug isn't in it.
You may get it cheaper on Steam too.
If you wait around for the next sale, you probably get it for about $5 on Steam as well.
Next game. I have a hankering. This might be the game that you're talking about. You're more excited about. Zone of the Ender's second runner is being remastered and going to be playable in VR.
This, to me, is the biggest news of this.
I kind of figured it was either this or Final Fantasy IX.
In part because it's like, wow, Konami did something.
Yeah.
And also in part because this game's great. It's way better than the first Zone of the Enders.
It is way better, yeah. I think the problem with Zone of the Enders, or Zoe as it's called, is that the first game wasn't bad, it just wasn't good. And I think a lot of people...
Well, we bought it to play the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo. Right. Let's be honest. I mean, that's why.
No doubt about it.
And it was like, and we got a decent little game in addition to this demo we wanted to play.
Yeah.
But this game is amazing.
This game is what the first one, and this happens all the time with franchises. Yeah. The second one ends up being the one that you kind of wanted in the first place. We talked about that with Destiny last week. But this one, and nobody gave it a chance.
Yeah.
Because people were so turned off by the first Zoe that they were just like,
there was no reason to assume it would be any different. Yeah. But it really is.
It is really good. Yeah, and it's playable in VR, coming to both PSVR and headsets for PC. Mm-hmm. At first I thought it was a PS4 exclusive. It's not. It is also coming to PC. And yeah, hey, Konami's making another real game.
Yeah, sort of. At least it didn't forget it made games at one point. Yeah. And now it's bringing it over.
This is also the first Kojima game that Konami is doing something without him, which is a little odd.
Makes you wonder what's in there.
What do you mean?
So maybe they'll just rewrite a couple lines just to piss him off.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, they could totally troll him with this game. I mean, I'm sure Kojima right now is like freaking out, wondering what they're going to do with it. But it's Konami's property. It can do whatever it wants with it. So, I mean, this was probably, for otaku like us, people who are hardcore into games, this was probably the most exciting announcement from... Mm-hmm. But put that into perspective, Matt. If this is the biggest announcement at a Sony press conference...
Yeah,
it's not a good press conference.
Yeah, I didn't say it was a good press conference.
I mean, I'm guessing a lot of people who maybe got into games in the last 10 or whatever years probably don't even know what Zone of the Enders is.
Well, I mean, it's not like it sold a lot of copies. It's not like they made a lot of copies.
And it's not talked about a lot as like a classic that's brought up in a lot of lists. Or, I mean, Kojima retrospectives.
This is one of those niche PS2 games that the people who love it, the people who don't love it, never heard of it. Like Blood Will Tell or something like that.
I remember when this game came out and I was working at GameSpot, and they sent it. We got like 3 copies or whatever, And it was very interesting to walk around the office and watch each different person play it. Because, and I'm not going to name names, but we had one person who was a huge Kojima fan. Just whatever Kojima did, he loved. We had another person who was just like an action game guy, who was actually going to be the one that did the reviews. And then we had, I think Ryan Davis was one of the people playing. Like, watching the opinions of the different people as they played it was fascinating. You had the Kojima person who was like, oh my god, this is the most awesome game I've ever played. You had the guy who was going to review the game who sat there completely befuddled and said, this is awkward and weird. I can't even really play it right. And then Ryan Davis just sat and cracked jokes the whole time. So it was like this weird smorgasbord of people with all different opinions on the game. And I think ultimately the opinions are pretty divisive on Zoe in general. I think that initial litmus test that happened at GameSpot ended up being extrapolated out across the entire industry with that game. The reviews were kind of all over the place. But what do you think about the VR part of it? Do you think that's going to be significant?
I think you shouldn't even. I think it's going to be significant. I don't think you should even try it.
This game is so fast. Like, I don't even. Is it going to be like third person, or are you actually in the mech?
Well, it looks like you're in the mech.
Yeah, but.
And then you've got a little hologram of your mech to show you what you're doing.
There. Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to work. Of all the remasters that I would expect to have had VR integration, this was not one of them.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty cool. I mean, I'm into it. This will be the real test for whether anything can make me nauseous in VR. Probably.
I mean, they went back and they're retexturing the whole game.
Yeah, 4K.
That's
supposedly.
Crazy.
Whatever 4K means in this scenario. But
I mean, look.
I don't even care about
for once, I can say
VR.
something good about Konami. Like, it's actually like putting in the extra effort to make this thing okay.
Yeah, I don't know what Sterling's going to do with this one.
Yeah.
Fuck! Konami!
I like it. What am I supposed to say now? So I'm pretty excited about it. I wonder, though, if the average player in 2017 really gives a crap.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
But one could argue
I'm not the
average player.
Yeah, you're definitely not. Next, I think this may have been actually, for me personally, the most exciting thing that was announced. Left Alive, which is a game being published by Square Enix. It's being developed by former Metal Gear developers. The lead artist on Metal Gear is working on this. Some of the art that was released for this game already it looks like Metal Gear art. It's like that crazy, wispy like art style that you've seen on a lot of Metal Gear promotions before. It's also being developed by someone who worked on the Frontline games before. So it appears to be under development by an all-star cast, so to speak. It is descriptions are kind of vague at this point. It's a post-apocalyptic action game. And that's pretty much all that they've
how
said
original.
So far. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like every other game that comes out right now. But it does look like it has a pretty decent budget. Certainly the pedigree is there with the developers. Near future, it appears.
Yeah, mechs.
In the mechs, yeah.
Definitely the most mechs in a press conference this year, I think.
I mean, you would expect that from Sony's TGS press conference, though. We're going to talk about some of those mechs a little later. Yeah. The fact that Square Enix is behind it gives me a little bit more hope in it. Because I think Square Enix has been on a pretty good tear here as far as the quality of its games. And when Square feels like a game isn't sort of up to big budget scratch, it kind of assigns it to its indie imprint. And Square's been doing a great job of bringing indie games to consumers as well with that new Square Enix collective. So I think this looks like the most interesting thing. But again, if this was at E3, it would have just settled at the bottom of the barrel. Nobody would have even noticed it. So
yeah, well, it's a good place to kind of pop it up for the first time, and then we'll probably see more at E3 next year.
Maybe. It looks like it's really early. Like even this limited stuff, they put a disclaimer at the front saying this is not in-game footage. So this was all just pre-rendered, whatever, just to announce the game.
Yeah, well, that gives them. It's almost a year from now.
Yeah.
So I could see them showing something at Sony's conference in E3.
Yeah, I have a feeling could now that Kojima's not with Konami, Jeff Keighley won't be getting Konami stuff exclusively for the Game Awards anymore. So yeah, maybe next year is a better bet for it. But
yeah, I'm gonna guess there's not gonna be a lot of Konami stuff at TGAs.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think they're gonna get the exclusive on the first gameplay of Zone of the Enders or anything.
No,
I don't see that happening. Let's see. Next game we're going to talk about is Earth Defense Force Iron Rain. This is a crazy series. This is one of those anomalies in the games industry. It's a franchise that tends to sell really well and is pretty awful. Mm-hmm. It's managed to find a niche.
But it's awful in a really appealing
endearing way, yes.
In Japan, they call them kusoge,
yeah.
which is short for shit games.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of like how we watch bad movies
yeah.
to enjoy the so bad it's good kind of thing.
Right.
And the Earth Defense Force games are totally that.
Without a doubt. But here's the thing. Now Ukes is developing this one.
Yeah, this one
and it
might
actually
be
looks
good.
like a real game. But see, here's the thing.
Which is interesting because it puts way more pressure on
right.
this one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this won't be a game that's so bad that it's good.
Yeah, like you're actually going to have to put some physics on the ants on
right.
this one. You know?
No one's going to give this a pass when they look at
No.
it. Like, Earth Defense Force, you play it, you're like, this is a goofy, bug-blasting, alien smashing...
Yeah, I'm actually a little more interested in... Because they also showed Earth Defense Force 5.
They did.
And
yeah.
that one
looks like
that one has giant bat-winged toads
yeah.
and eating people, and
yeah.
that's awesome. This one looks like it's really trying to kind of do it straight up. Like, matter of fact, when they first showed this for a second, I remember I thought it was that survival horror disaster game where like Godzilla's in it
yeah.
and Evangelion and all this.
Day of Disaster.
Yeah, and but it's not. It's this. Which is, I mean, look, I love the Earth Defense Force games. I'm willing to play whatever they want to throw at me, and if they want to throw like a better game at me, great.
Yeah.
Like I'll take that. But I'm also going to play the shitty ones.
Yeah. I just think it's ironic that this game may end up being better than those other ones, and it might have a chance of selling worse.
Yeah, that's true. Well, because you're straying from the formula, and some people just want that formula. It's like if you accidentally made a really good Dynasty Warriors game, would it fly? I don't know. I frankly, and like this looks cool. I mean, I'm into what they're doing here, but frankly, right now I'm more interested in that Earth Defense Force 5 put in a giant robot you control.
Yeah.
Because that's by Sandlot. Those are the guys who made Robot Alchemic Drive, which is another PS2 game nobody remembers, but I love.
Yeah.
Where you basically control like you're like like Johnny Sacco and his giant robot, which we know is Gigantor. You are basically a kid who gets a giant robot, and you have to stand somewhere on the destructible city environment and control him remotely. And like it's like trying to control a marionette and like accidentally knocking buildings down while you're trying to fight these monsters, and it's awesome. It's terrible, but it's awesome.
Games that a lot of people are
and the same people who made once Earth Defense Force kind of took off as sort of a niche phenomenon, they basically never went back to that idea.
Right.
But if they're going to bring that into Earth Defense Force 5, like you can take my money right now.
I think
I'm excited about where this franchise is going, both in terms of where the crappy one is going to go next, and where they're going to go with this one that Ukes is making that might actually be good in terms of in its own terms as a game.
Well, the other thing I noticed about Iron Rain is that it seems to focus a lot more on battling mechs versus battling the bugs.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, there's whole levels about destroying robots because there's no consistency to the aliens in the series. Like they start with
not
giant
like a race or
ants.
Anything.
Well, there's giant ants, and then they send giant tarantulas and jumping spiders, and then giant robots show up, and then flying saucers, and then. I mean, there's no.
I think that's
pattern.
Part of the appeal, though.
It's just like a mishmash of all kind of 50s B sci-fi stuff,
Monster
and the voice acting is ridiculously over the top cheese. Your teammates are all running around chanting EDF all the time. My favorite line of all time, I think, was in 2 or 3. And when you first go down, because all the lines are randomized, but like when you first go down into the tunnels, like these games also are really long. There's like 80 missions in each one. They just take forever. And there's like 5 difficulty settings that do not stack as well. It's like if you want to complete these games 100%, I'll see you next year.
You have to play every one.
But you go into the tunnels to hunt down the Ant Queen or something, and one of my guys goes, "We're on an exciting underground expedition," and I'm just like, "This game is awesome. Like this is great."
Yeah, so it looks like they're trying to bump up the production values of that a little bit. I think the jury's out on whether that will make it more or less successful, though.
I mean, I'll keep my eye on it, but I don't know. I mean, the success kind of comes from how half-assed it is. So
it does.
It's like you say, it's going to be interesting to see if making a good Earth Defense Force game torpedoes it.
It might. It might completely sink the franchise.
Who told you I wanted a good game? I want Earth Defense Force, damn it.
EDF. All right, next we're going to talk about Dissidia, Final Fantasy, and T. This game has been in Japanese arcades for a year and a half now. It's finally coming to PlayStation 4. We knew it always was going to, but finally it is coming to Sony's console. The big announcement at TGS is that Noctis from Final Fantasy 15 is now coming to...
Oh, well, now I'll pre-order it.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, this is a big story about nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Noctis anyway.
No,
after
putting Final Fantasy 15 things in something is not the way to get me to buy it.
Yeah.
But I am interested in this game. I like the PSP ones.
The Dissidia games?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different kind of fighting game. And I think one, it's going to appeal to Final Fantasy fans. Two, it is kind of more of a casual fighter. It's almost like an arena hack and slash more than like a really complex fighter where you have to learn a lot of intricate inputs and things like that. So I think it might find a market.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't call it Final Fantasy 15 Dissidia.
Yeah.
Because Square Enix has been real hype on doing that kind of stuff over the last year and a half.
As long as Final Fantasy's in the name, it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's good enough.
I think getting it off the handhelds is probably the best move they could be doing here. It's going to give it an opportunity to be exposed to a much wider audience. And it ain't like anything else in Final Fantasy is available for a while, so
no, it's true. It may be a decade until he gets something else that isn't just a port of something old.
Until the Final Fantasy VII remake shows up.
No, yeah, and that actually that may be 10 years. So
yeah,
we'll see how that goes. Then the last game we want to talk about from Sony's TGS press conference is Dynasty Warriors 9. They showed a huge trailer for that. You guys are going to see it right now.
It's 8 there, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the nomenclature with the games is different there.
Yeah, because they started with a fighting game here.
I saw some of the press actually screw that up. Like, they reported it as Dynasty Warriors 8.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the numbers were different in each territory. Coming early next year. Worldwide release, all at once.
They are really cranking these out. I mean, not just these, but I'm talking about, like, we got 8, and then we got Hyrule Warriors, and we got the Berserk game, and then we get this, and then we're getting Fire Emblem Warriors. Like,
Omega Force is just on fire.
It's
either that or it's just barfing out clones.
I know. It's like they're making these at Foxconn or something.
Yeah. Dynasty Warriors 9 is open world. So for the first time, really ever in franchise history, there is a big change coming to the game. It remains to be seen just how big that change is. Just saying you have an open world could not, there could be a chance that it doesn't really change that much with how the game plays, to be honest with you.
I mean, at least it looks better.
Oh, certainly. I mean, easily the best-looking game in the series, as it should be. I mean, this is the first Generation 8 original game released in this franchise's lineage, so it should be good. I mean, look, there's horse riding, and you can jump in the water and swim.
Horse riding looks like somebody actually bothered to animate it.
Right.
Time,
I mean, sadly, these are features that are new to this franchise.
Horse riding's been in there forever.
Yeah, I guess so. But I think they're making a point that it's for traversal and not just for combat. Because you're in an open world, and obviously you need to get from one place to another.
See, that's the thing. What makes me skeptical about the open world thing is, like, the maps are pretty big to begin with.
That's what I'm saying.
I've ridden horses around the maps all the time to get places as opposed to running. So it's like,
right.
I'm not sure what they're going to do that makes that any different here.
Well, they're just going to stitch all those areas together into one big area, probably. And then hopefully give you a fast travel option so you don't need the damn horse.
Nothing enhances gameplay like transit.
Do you think there's still an audience for this game? I know Jim Sterling loves this franchise.
Maybe. I mean, I would love to play a good one again. I really liked Hyrule Warriors. I thought Hyrule Warriors felt better than any Dynasty Warriors game in the last several years.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy Fire Emblem Warriors, in part because I just love the Fire Emblem character designs.
Yeah.
But I like the concept of the Dynasty Warriors games. I like just hack and slashing through hundreds and thousands of characters, and I enjoy that. Mm-hmm. But I've done the Romance of the Three Kingdoms thing so often that, like, I feel like I'm just, I can't play another damn Yellow Turban Rebellion.
Yeah.
It's like, unless you're really giving me something interesting, which is why Hyrule Warriors hooked me, because it's not anything I've done before. It's still something I like and I'm pre-interested in, but, like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to really, people are going to have to rave over this thing to get my attention. Like,
agreed.
So, and especially because by the time this comes out, I'll probably have already played through a fair chunk of Fire Emblem Warriors, which will probably have ongoing DLC happening. I'll be invested in that game. You'll have hit your quota. And I don't know why I'd want to go back. I mean, look, I want to fight Lu Bu as much as anybody, but, like, and I will always go back to play Cow P whenever I can. I don't know if that's how you're actually pronouncing that anymore, but it is how they pronounced it in one of the old games, because the English localizations were never all that great back in the day. But I just don't. I mean, I picked up Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires for like $9 in a sale.
That's about all I'd pay for one of these games, unless, like you said, this one is completely redoes the formula.
Yeah, this is going to take, like, I mean, I'll jump in on this if, like...
Perfect timing with him jumping into the water.
Yeah, if huge, like, scores and, like, Jim Sterling says it's the greatest thing he's ever seen, because he, you know...
I take his reviews of this series with a grain of salt.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know, like, I can usually discern from what he says, like, what I think about things.
Yeah.
Like, he's a useful... Like I say, like, you know, I don't have to... You don't have to agree with a critic for him to be a valuable critic, and I think Sterling... Yeah. Sterling is a very good example of that, because I don't always agree with him on things, but I know where he's coming from, and I know how we differ more or less, and like I will always gain valuable information from Jim Sterling, even if I hate everything he says in a video. Even videos where I'm like, I don't agree with anything you said, but I get something out of it.
A lot of it is just being really descriptive.
Right. Well, he's very good at that.
He is, yeah, for sure.
And that's what we need. But basically, everybody's going to have to praise this to hell and back for me to really want to jump in at launch. There's way too much other good stuff to play, especially Q1 next year, assuming that's when this would come to the West. I don't know if that would be a localization issue. I mean, look, if that comes to the West around the same time, you're bumping up against Ni no Kuni 2, and I'm sorry, but Studio Ghibli wins in that fight.
For sure. So that pretty much wraps up Sony's TGS 2017 press conference. There were a couple other games. There was a new Idolmaster and more Japan-centric stuff. But this is really the bulk of what's there. Are you still willing to say that this is okay? I mean, we're supposed to be... This is the PS4 hitting its, like, peak here.
I don't know about okay, but it's pretty much what I expected. I guess that's what I'd say.
I expected way more than this.
This is about as interesting as TGS gets these days.
I mean, look, I'm
just happy it's not a giant mobile gaming show anymore.
I mean, TGS hasn't been worth going to since probably 2010.
Yeah.
At GT, 2010 was the last year where we actually got good content out of it. We went back 2011 because we had a good 2010, and then we went back 2012 saying this might be the last time if it doesn't improve.
I think we stopped sending people on 2010, and by 2010 we were literally sending Morgan and a producer.
Right.
Like we used to send an army.
Yeah.
You know? We used
At
to
G4
send
we
everybody.
sent like 30 people to Tokyo Game Show, but that was for Attack of the Show and X-Play and everything.
Yeah. But we would never do that.
But at Game Trailers...
Like even 3 years after we did that, we would never consider it. It was all mobile stuff. There was nothing to talk about.
Yeah. And at Game Trailers, like, we were all in at first. Like, even, like, our executives went, like, the first year we covered Tokyo Game Show.
Because everybody wants to go to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Right.
But then we started cutting it down. And then by 2012, I actually went that year. And I think we had, like, 6 guys go, something like that. And then we hired a fixer to help us with everything. But when we returned from that show, we had like nothing. Like it was probably the biggest waste of money that we spent in all the time I was at GT, and I don't think they ever went back again. And for the most part, most of the smaller sites just don't bother to go anymore. So I hear you when you say this is what you expect from Tokyo Game Show. Mm-hmm. To me, kind of the anomaly of TGS has always been Sony's presser, though. That's like the one time where you actually get some legit stuff out of it. And I just felt really let down by that this year. So
I mean, I guess maybe from our perspective as more Western gamers, but like in terms of what was in there, like it felt like it hit all the notes for that market.
They didn't show a new Vita color.
Well,
doomed.
They showed the new Yakuza stuff. They showed the.
They did?
Yeah, they showed Kiwami.
Oh,
Kiwami 2.
Kiwami 2, yeah.
They showed the Fist of the North Star game by the Yakuza guys, which looks pretty much made. I mean, there's a hostess club. There's a hostess club sequence in that trailer where he's in a tuxedo and stuff. I'm like, well, okay, sure, why not? He's making drinks and stuff. Yeah. Okay. There was a bunch of dating game stuff. There was some Idolmaster stuff. It's just like it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Like it's not for us, really. I mean, it was kind of.
It was for a while.
It was kind of them to. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I am interested in there. There was a lot of PSVR. It was kind of them to have an English voiceover for a lot of it. You know,
even though it was terrible.
Yeah,
the guy who started it was great, and in the middle it switched to some woman who was awful.
Yeah, but at least I understood more or less what was happening. Yeah. More than I could say if they didn't do that.
Yeah, for sure.
They made a whole song out of Star Wars Battlefront 2. the Japanese dubbing in Call of Duty World War II actually sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't blow me out the back of the theater or anything, but I thought it was all right. It was about what I thought.
I thought it was bad, really disappointing. And the other part of it too is I was up till like 3 a.m.
A lot of Taiko Drum Master.
Yeah.
I mean, it was super Japanese, and that's kind of what I expected it to be. I didn't expect Elder Scrolls 6 to get announced or anything, you know?
Yeah, I expected more because of what I kind of started the discussion with, how Nintendo is kind of starting to eat Sony's lunch in Japan. And I just thought it might pull out some more stops to try to kind of stem the tide a little bit.
What's ready is what's ready.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out if stuff was ready or wasn't ready in the next couple months.
Well, also, to some degree, maybe it's better to keep your head down, wait for the Mario hurricane to pass, and start again in the new year.
That's a good point. All right.
Give Jeff Keighley something to really blow out in December. How about that?
I mean, truth be told,
they usually keep stuff for PlayStation Experience, though.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, the stature of TGS is at such a point in 2017 that I could literally see Sony US saying, we're not giving you.
Yeah, that's also very possible.
And we'd rather give it to PSX or the Game Awards or Paris Games
Although
Week.
maybe bring the people who sang that song back to do the FIFA thing at the EA press conference next year, because that was amazing.
Yeah. But look, TGS is coming, and even though I was disappointed with Sony's press conference, that doesn't mean the whole show is going to suck. And we'll be curating all the best content from TGS on Sifted, as always sortable by over 60 different categories. So there's going to be a big deluge of media coming into Sifted, but you'll be able to make sense of all of it thanks to the way our site works. So make sure you check it out this weekend. Our last topic of the show, and this is an extremely short one, maybe the shortest episode of GameFace since Marcus left the show.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Metroid Samus Returns. We had 11 or 12 topics in the show last week, more than the one before that. Didn't really have room for this. I didn't really have time to play it until now either.
I didn't even get it until Monday.
Yeah, I've actually had it for a little while. I've just had time to crack it open and play it. Game's not been getting amazing reviews. Mm-hmm. They're good, but they're not amazing. First 2D Metroid in forever, and granted it is a remaster, or a remake, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely a remake.
Yeah, of Metroid 2 from the original Game Boy. Mm-hmm. What are your initial impressions of it, Matt?
I like it.
Yeah.
It's really good. I get why people are not, 9ing and 10ing it, because I think some of the controls are a little... I mean, while the free aim ability is good, it's a change, and it doesn't... I mean, I find it a little tiring to play with the stupid thumb disc thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, the counter move, where you hit the X button and you counter an enemy.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea, but I think it's simplistic and it's used too much. It's the way you beat everything, basically. And you don't have to, but for the Metroid bosses,
every game that has counters in it, the game ends up being all about counters. Think about Assassin's Creed. Any game that includes it, you just end up abusing it.
But in general, I mean, I love 2D Metroid. In the end, the classic 2D Metroid may be my favorite Nintendo anything, even above Zelda. And it feels really good to play. I love Samus's animation. She there's a lot of character in her animation in this that hasn't been there in a lot of the other 2D games, where she's got a grace to her that also has power.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of the kind of positions she ends up in to aim different places. And because when you counter,
it's very stylized.
It auto aims and it looks really good.
Yeah.
It all flows real well. Some of the new abilities are cool that they've added, ability to scan an area and find hidden things, and
bringing in some Prime elements there.
Yeah, and I like it. I don't super love it yet. I'm a little lost right now. I can't figure out where to go next.
That's Metroid.
But that is Metroid for sure. I'm not. That's it's not super easy like that.
It can drive me crazy sometimes, though.
Yeah, but
particularly in the Prime games with the wireframe 3D map.
And you can't see what the hell you're supposed to... Yeah, that's true. But it feels really good to play Metroid again. That's really the long and the short of it. And the doors look really cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool little touches in this. And that's the other thing is, this is way better than Mirror of Fate.
Oh, for sure.
Which is Mercury Steam's previous 2D... they did the Castlevania game between Lords of Shadow 1 and 2. And this is like...
Well, they also did the Castlevania 3D games, Lords of Shadow.
Yeah, but like they did a Mirror of Fate was basically a between game.
Which looked great.
Looked great, but did not play even half as good as this.
Or it didn't play half as good as it looked either.
Right.
Yeah, I was a little nervous when I found out that Mercury Steam was creating this, but part of it...
Clearly the Nintendo quality control was in effect here.
Yeah.
They got a good thing out of them.
Yeah, they had... I'm sure Nintendo was working with them very closely on this. How do you feel about the fact that... And look, I would say, too, that the reviews are pretty accurate.
Yeah.
They're not wrong. They're not Nintendo hating or anything.
No. And it's also like, look, Metroid 2 is not the most compelling game in the series.
It's not.
Just by definition.
But this game... It's a lot different than Metroid 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't played it for quite a while, but my recollection of Metroid 2, they've changed a good bit about it.
Well, the map is the map is recognizable, but it's very different. There's a lot of new areas. There's a lot of new side channels or whatever.
Yeah.
The basic functionality of the game is the same. You go in, there's a bunch of Metroids. You got to kill 40 Metroids or whatever all around the map. And
the game design is similar.
Yeah, it is the same story more or less. It's just there's a lot more there, at least from what I remember, because like I haven't played Metroid 2 in forever.
Yeah. I went back and played it not that long ago. That long ago means like 10 years ago or something.
I played it a little bit because I have it on my 3DS as like the virtual console. And so I did go back and play a little bit when the fan remake came out last year, just to refresh myself. Yeah. And it was an interesting...
Which was shut down almost immediately.
Yeah, but everybody already got it. Yeah. You can find it if you want to. And that's also an interesting comparison because that is more of a fan game that was rooted in taking Metroid 2 and adding the lessons and graphics and gameplay elements of Super Metroid to it.
Yeah.
And I think that is also a valid reinterpretation of that game. I don't think people talk about which one, and I think both of them. I think AM2R and this can coexist just fine because they're two very different takes on the same material.
How do you feel about the fact that it is kind of getting lukewarm reviews? Here's the other part of it: it is not sold especially well. All the sales data we've got in the UK, it debuted at 8th. Mm-hmm. In Japan, it debuted with around 30K sales in its first week.
Metroid's not a sales juggernaut. Never has been.
And then, coupled with the fact that it's not a new game, and it hasn't reviewed particularly well.
Like, how many copies these Kirby things sell every time?
I don't know, man. I don't get it. Like,
you get 14 Kirby games, but this thing sells the same as that, and you don't get another one for 9 years.
It's just making me a little nervous that we may not see another 2D Metroid for a long, long time. And it was a long time to get this one.
It's possible.
The other part of it, too, is that, I've not finished this game yet. I've played a good bit of it. But I'm almost of the mind at this point that there are other Metroidvania games that are better than this. Like, I think based upon what I've played so far of this, I think I enjoyed Axiom Verge more than this so far.
I wouldn't agree with that.
I mean, look, there's a nostalgia.
Axiom Verge is really good, but I don't have a lot of nostalgia for Metroid 2.
No, I'm just saying for Metroid in general.
Yeah, I just think this feels good to play. And Axiom Verge does too, but it's a lot more Super Metroid. This doesn't have as much Super Metroid to it. This is...
Yeah, I kind of thought they might lean a little more towards that direction,
too.
But
I think once you get free aim in the mix, it just doesn't feel like Super Metroid anymore. Yeah. And that's not really a bad or a good thing, but it's just different. Uh-huh. Look, it's not other M, and that's all that matters. And one way or the other, we're still going to get Metroid Prime 4 somewhere down the road, way down the road. I would love if this would, somehow kind of create a demand for more 2D Metroid, but if it doesn't, well, at least we got this. I mean, that's the Metroid fans' mantra is, at least we got this. And at least Federation Force didn't result in the series getting mothballed for 10 years.
No, you're right. Matt, why do you think Metroid does not sell well?
I don't know.
This is a mystery I've never been able to fully understand or explain.
I don't know. I don't know.
It has, in my opinion, probably Nintendo's coolest character. The games are typically bleeding edge, really good, usually reviewed extremely high.
I love the look of them, and they're very satisfying.
But they just don't sell.
Well, they don't. Metroid is part of that kind of B-tier Nintendo, property list, which is everything that isn't Zelda and Mario, basically.
And Smash Brothers.
Yeah, although Smash Brothers sell in Mario levels, Mario Zelda level.
Oh yeah.
So this is their.
But I think it deserves to be there.
I think a lot of things deserve to be there, but it's not going to happen.
Nintendo games? What other Nintendo franchises deserve to be among those three?
Well, I mean, this is a very subjective idea, but I think Pikmin should be.
Maybe.
But
borderline.
I wish Pikmin was more popular. Let's put it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too.
F-Zero should be up there.
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
But don't you think Metroid is the one that really should be there, though?
Oh, Metroid is definitely, like I said, Metroid is probably taken as a whole my favorite Nintendo series.
I mean, when you think about the time, the quality, the critics' response, it should sell way better than it does.
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff should sell way better than it does, but...
Not stuff that gets marketed as much as
people
Metroid
got
does.
Dynasty Warriors games to play.
You're right. I guarantee you Dynasty Warriors 9 will outsell this game by a wide margin. But so would you wholeheartedly recommend this to every Metroid fan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, in fact, I would be surprised if those people weren't already playing this while listening to us.
Yes, probably. You're probably right.
You don't need us to tell you that.
Yeah. But I mean, look, there are some people who are on the fence, obviously, because a lot of people don't buy this series. What about for people who don't buy Metroid and have passed on it? Should they buy it?
I think everyone should play Metroid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, because that means I'll get more Metroid later.
No, you're right. Just being selfish.
Right. But I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I don't have an idea of, like, I have trouble separating kind of, I guess, probably the inherent fandom or nostalgia I have for Metroid from, like you say, like, why don't these things sell? I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
like,
I don't
these
either,
are
man.
Metroid games are great. Like,
yeah.
Metroid Prime's one of the greatest games ever made. The first one.
That one sold pretty well.
That one sold well, but it's still. I mean, they sell in like the 300,000 range. They don't sell in the millions.
Well, I mean, the first Metroid Prime did sell well over 1 million. But if you start looking at then Prime 2 and Prime 3, the sales went down every time. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. I hope this isn't the last 2D Metroid that we see, but
I don't think anything Nintendo makes will be the last anything
yeah.
Nintendo makes. You know, like, they'll try it again and later. It's more like the whole, I just hope it's not the last one we see until we're in our 50s.
Until I'm too old to play them. And at our age, you got to start thinking about that kind of stuff. So
I do have a friend who's been saving all his JRPGs for when he's too old to have reflexes.
Yeah. That's funny. One thing I would say is maybe you should go out and buy like the collector's edition of this.
Yeah, if you can find it.
If you can find it.
I think Amazon still has it.
Yeah.
I got it.
I think they just actually put more back up for sale on maybe GameStop the other day.
So Amazon put more up, and they were available like 2 days after it came out. So
yeah.
like, they actually made enough collector's editions for everybody.
But doesn't that kind of show...
They did not make enough amiibos for everybody.
Yeah, they sold out immediately. But doesn't that kind of show the lack of demand for Metroid?
A little bit.
The fact that they're like, hey, we have more than... Or maybe we should just be happy that finally Nintendo made enough of something.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a second wave of collector's editions of Fire Emblem Echoes as well. I mean, like Nintendo seems to finally be catching on that they can sell more of these
if they make more
of them. And you know, I mean, it's not like they didn't like blow out the doors to some degree. I mean, we got the new amiibos, which are really cool. You got the collector's edition available, and you have a brand new 3DS themed around, which I bought, by the way. I bought the Samus 3DS. I haven't opened it because you only put your goddamn account on one 3DS at a time because of Nintendo. But I'm saving it as like my backup in case something happens to my existing 3DS.
Yeah.
Because I love Metroid and I love Samus, and I feel like I'm probably not going to get another Samus themed Nintendo system anytime soon. So
they'll make a Metroid Prime 4 Switch.
If they make a Metroid Prime 4 Switch, I will buy that.
What if it's just the Metroid Prime 4 logo on it? Will you buy it still?
Well, depends how much my launch Switch has bent.
Yeah. Mine's still bone straight. Mine's still good.
Mine, you can see it.
You can see it starting on yours?
I mean, if you lay it down, you're like, oh, it's a little.
Really?
So like, I mean, I don't care. I'm never going to use it as a handheld. So it can do as long as it keeps working. It can do whatever the hell it wants in that stupid dock.
All right, it's time for our trailer of the week. There was actually a ton of great trailers this week. It was hard choosing one. But there's one game, one franchise that showed off of an important feature for the very first time this week, and that is Call of Duty World War II, showing off the story mode or the campaign, whatever you want to call it.
Are you officially supposed to say Call of Duty World War II or Call of Duty WW2?
I don't really give a crap. I'm going to say World War II.
Because the abbreviation is longer to say than the actual words.
You're right, actually. And it's also been interesting, too, watching sites, how they title it. Because a lot of sites are calling it WW2 because they know that's what people are going to search for. Most people aren't going to use the Roman numerals II.
Well, what's the logo say? Like the actual
It's
official logo?
WWII.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wee.
You won't be saying that after you watch this trailer. This trailer is, I think, pretty dark, in all honesty. It looks like the campaign in this game is going to be pretty serious. Sam, let it roll.
Hey, stop! He's not worth it. Daniels.
Gentlemen, we're on the verge of the biggest operation of the entire war.
All right, fellas. This is our chance to break out of Normandy. Won't be easy. But you focus on your men, because that's what'll get you through.
If we get this convoy across, we're in the heartland.
All right, on me!
We thought we knew what war would be like. But nothing prepared us for this.
Wer sind die Juden? Lose the tags. Lose them. They're after Jews. Die Juden.
I'm not giving up on my platoon.
We are cogs in the machine, Joseph. We start going our own way, the whole thing breaks down. When did you forget that?
These are men! Our men! When did you forget?
Let's take that bridge and find our boy.
Gear up! Let's move!
You think you got some guts, don't you?
Was isn't us.
Well, look, it's all or nothing. It's all been leading to this. Let's move. Boy, ain't that something, Fritz.
Matt, is it possible to make a campaign in a World War II first-person shooter that doesn't seem like it's Saving Private Ryan?
Probably not. Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers pretty much define how we look at that, I think, cinematically in a modern context. I'll tell you, I will make a Call of Duty campaign prediction at this point, though, for 2 years out.
Oh, 2 years out.
2 years
I
out.
hope we're here to be able to see if
Not
you're right.
next year, but 2 years out.
Right.
Or maybe the year after, will be Vietnam.
Okay.
Because Ken Burns' Vietnam series that just started premiering this week, international sensation.
Oh, really?
More international like countries, more different countries have licensed it for broadcast in their country than any other Ken Burns documentary ever.
Wow.
So the Vietnam War thing he did is going to have huge pickup, and I think if you're going to try and tap into the military zeitgeist of history as the Call of Duty creators, I think they're going to start thinking about the Vietnam War right now.
Where can people watch that, Matt?
PBS, their site. You can watch it for free there. You can get it on
Probably
Amazon.
on their YouTube channel, too, I'm guessing.
It might be. I haven't looked. I've been watching it on their site. And then any local public broadcasting in America has it. And then various, if it's broadcast internationally, it's a different channel on whoever licensed it there.
Gotcha.
So check your local listings, I guess, if you're in Europe or whatever. But it's a very interesting. I think the first 2 episodes are the most interesting because they give the background on why it happened, going back 100 years to the French colonialism and imperialism that sort of created the situation to begin with, which most Americans don't realize was the background for that.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of context for that, and it was very interesting. But I think that is going to start a conversation that makes Vietnam like a hotter topic, and Activision's going to try to tap into that with Call of Duty.
Interesting prediction. Oh, I forgot to mention, you guys should have got your questions in during the trailer of the week. Some of you guys
They
already
were.
know, and there's some questions in already, but you can send them in now. Here's a good one. W. Matthew, what do you think of Epic turning on cross-platform play between Xbox One and PlayStation 4 by mistake?
Oh, I'm sure that was a mistake. Interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Epic comes out and says...
What's this I've tripped over?
Yeah, Epic comes out and says... basically chastises Sony for not allowing it, and then by accident, it accidentally turns it on.
Yeah, almost as if to say, look how easy it is.
Easy this is. I mean, it pretty much...
Like, we don't even need Sony's permission to do it.
It just put Sony on blast, basically, and said, look, how petty Sony is being over this.
I mean,
I don't think a lot of people are going to pick up on it. No one's going to tweet at PlayStation, I can't believe you're not allowing cross-platform play because of it.
Yeah.
But I do admire Epic for just going a little rogue there and being like, look, we're going to show you... At least the people who care are going to know that it's all on you.
And it's also like they're one of the few companies that can do that with impunity.
Right.
Because it's like, what are you going to do? Like, cut off the people that make Unreal?
Yeah,
it's
you
like,
can't.
You can't do that.
So I think it was great. Like, I don't believe that it was on accident at all.
No, I don't believe that.
Epic doesn't do stuff like that. And if it did, it wouldn't admit to it.
That seems like a switch you would label.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't leave that one unmarked. Yeah, I love it. I love that Epic did that. It just seems to be this like thing that's rumbling below the surface in the game industry right now. Everyone else is on board to do cross-platform play, but Sony.
Mm-hmm. Like at a certain point, I like that the publishers are kind of starting to apply this pressure to Sony for a pro-consumer reason.
Yeah.
And eventually, I think from PR standpoint, they're just going to have to allow it because otherwise you're just like, why are you... It's like we don't want... I mean, it's like, yeah, I understand from a business perspective why you don't want to allow that because you're in the lead and you don't need to worry about it otherwise. But at a certain point, you're going to have to start to answer to your people.
Give it another 6 months in Japan and... Sony's going to start begging Nintendo to make Nintendo's games cross-compatible with Sony. Once it takes the lead, because it's on its way, it is going to take the lead over PlayStation 4 eventually. So it's easy to be a jerk when you're winning. When you're not winning, it makes it a lot more difficult.
And Sony, if there's one thing Sony needed to learn from the PlayStation 3, it's to always remember where you came from.
I feel like it hasn't. I feel like it did at the beginning of the generation, and I feel like since then it's kind of started slipping. So
at some point, one of these companies is going to learn because they keep falling into that same pattern. Microsoft did the same thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like, oh, we were consumer friendly with the Xbox 360. Screw that.
Yep.
And then Sony did the opposite. We weren't friendly with consumers for the PS3. We had this crazy high price. PS4 all different. But now over the lifespan of the PS4, I've seen Sony slowly starting to slip back into the way it was.
They get real comfortable on the throne real quick.
They do. And I think not just Sony. I think most publishers do.
Oh, they all, yeah, for sure.
Here's one from J. Reed Vic 7. If you and Matt could each bring a AAA budget to one game that's been on the decline since budgets skyrocketed, what genre? I don't understand that part. Could it be revitalized by the wild risks that came from your investment choice? I'm not sure I understand that question.
I think if there's a genre that's not a force in the world anymore, if you could take a AAA budget and make a new game that would revitalize that genre, what would you make?
Well, until Super Mario Odyssey was coming out, I would say the 3D platformer because that's a genre I used to really love, and we kind of hoped with Yooka-Laylee that's what we were going to get, and all Yooka-Laylee ended up being was a game from 1998.
Right, a reminder of why it went away.
Yeah, pretty much, it really was. And so maybe I should reserve judgment until I play more of Super Mario Odyssey. But that, for me, is the genre that I would love to see revive with a big budget. And maybe with a little more of an angle towards an older audience. Because I think what publishers forget is that the people who grew up in the golden era of the 3D platformer and the N64, essentially, those people are all old now. And they just haven't stopped enjoying that type of gameplay, or games that just have a lot of gameplay variety. And that, to me, is kind of what the 3D platformer is. It's this label that we placed on it so we can put it up on a shelf and say, this is it. But to me, what the 3D platformer really is just a game that has a ton of different genres in it. It has shooting, it has jumping, it has puzzles, it has adventure elements where you have to discover stuff. To me, the 3D platformer is kind of like every genre rolled into one. And I get it's really hard to create games like that are really good and polished all the way through because you're trying to create a game with 5 or 6 different genres. There's racing. I mean, you can go on and on. And so I get where the challenge is, but I would love to see a publisher really put some serious money behind it other than Nintendo, because Nintendo is never going to make an edgier 3D platformer. So that would be my pick.
I would take Star Citizen's budget and make X-Wing and TIE Fighter again.
Wow. There you go. So Flight Sim. Big budget for a space sim.
Yeah. which obviously, like, there is a big budget flight space sim being made in the form of Star System, but I'm talking about something. I'm
where
talking
the
about
money's
something,
actually going towards
yeah,
what
I'm
you
talking
care
about
about.
something that would actually come out. And
where the money's being spent on stuff you care about instead of stuff you don't.
And also, look, I mean, as much as I'm interested in Star Citizen and the kind of the new space sims that are cropping up, Wing Commander and Star Wars have my attention as licenses already. So, like, I want TIE Fighter again, and I want TIE Fighter with a modern budget. I don't want just a remaster or remake. I want a full new game with, and I don't mean like the Starfighter mode in Battlefront. I mean, make that game again, but make it with modern tech and modern sensibility and modern playability, and that's what I would do.
Okay.
Would it revitalize the genre? No, because I'm the only one who cares. But like, that's what I would do.
All right, next one from SJD Swanland. Understanding that it was because Sony paid Activision to get Destiny exclusive content once again, wouldn't Activision be better served to have the PC version have the same content to give more players incentive to use link deleted and butt their games? I don't know. Maybe we should pass on that one.
I don't know. Whatever. They were better served. BattleNet, yeah, that must be what it is. They were better served to take money from Sony, apparently, because Sony paid them a lot of money. Like, in a deal like that, by definition, whatever money you're being offered for the exclusivity or the advanced thing is more than you think you will make out of just going standard.
So he's saying, so I can get it now. So how did you see the link, by the way? It's deleted out in mine.
Right under the thing.
Oh. He's basically saying to give players more incentive to use Battle.net and buy their game.
Mm-hmm.
What advantage really is there to using Battle.net, though? I mean, it doesn't generate revenue. In fact, it probably just costs you revenue.
I mean, I think he just means it keeps your eyes on, theoretically, on Activision's games, but all the other games on that are Blizzard's.
Yeah.
I guess it would make more sense if they had a more robust kind of Origin-style service that encompassed all Activision games and weren't just like, finally starting to branch out on that. Look, I think they've sort of killed the PC version of Destiny 2 in the cradle to some degree, because I certainly know a lot of people who could have played it on PC that have jumped the gun and gotten the PS4 version already, both because stuff comes to PS4 version first, but also because they didn't want to wait a month and a half to play the game.
Well, that's the other problem here, is that the PC version comes later.
Yeah. And it looks beautiful, but
does.
I ain't double dipping on that thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to play it. I had people to play, and everyone I know is playing on PS4.
Yeah. Yeah, for everyone I know is playing it, period. Like, my friends list at night, it is just Destiny the whole way down. So knowing that the PC version is coming later now, but basically what's going to happen is the content's probably going to come out for the PS4 version, then the PC version is going to launch.
Yeah.
Or around about there. So, in general, I mean, the game is a console game. It came from the console space. It has more fans on console. So I just think the deal makes more sense for the PlayStation 4 than the PC for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
And that's where its audience is.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that they put it there, but I was thinking maybe I'd double dip one day if I could get it cheap on PC just to see it look that good. But Activision doesn't do that. That Transformers game from 5-6 years ago is still $50 on Steam.
Yeah.
They don't drop their prices on things. It's one of the reasons I don't own any Call of Duty games on Steam, because they just cost too much. Because Activision doesn't have to drop the price, and they won't have to drop the price on Destiny 2 either.
No, you're right. Next one from Kadaz. Seeing that COD is going back to World War II and Titanfall 2 was receiving tepid sales, is jetpacking and wall running a dead mechanic now? Have you seen any other mechanics become fads and fall out of favor in the past?
Certainly didn't help lawbreakers.
No, it definitely didn't. Traversal...
I don't have an answer to that. I think that's a good question, though. That's the thing to keep your eye on going forward, I would say.
I don't think it's dead. No, not at all.
Dead, no, but I think it's not going to... Like, the jetpacking and the wall running isn't going to get you eyeballs by default.
Anymore.
You're going to have to do something.
It'd have to be good.
Because there's plenty of interesting traversal mechanics in Overwatch.
Yeah.
But it's all character-driven.
Yeah, and I think that is why Overwatch is doing so well, is because it's not one size fits all.
Right.
If you like wall running or jetpacking, then you find the characters that do that. If you don't like it, You find a character that doesn't do that.
And the advantage of that also is, I think, that you feel cool when you use a special traversal ability your character has to do something successful.
Yeah.
Whereas if everyone's around doing the same thing, it can kind of become a little monochromatic. Let's say. It's like in The Incredibles, where the kid says, if everyone's special, then nobody is. But if you did something, if you got a kill or you got a key play that only your character could have pulled off, like that's a more exhilarating experience.
I think in general what we're seeing is that creating a game where everybody does the same thing and looks the same is a huge mistake in 2017.
Yeah. And people are starting to demand more than just you have a different helmet on.
Yeah. I mean, your character has to look different, it has to act different. And each character has to be really good and feel good to play with. I think that's the lesson that we've learned from Overwatch versus all these other games that have failed, which we've talked about a ton on today's show.
And I think
that Overwatch provides variety and something for every player.
And I also think that ties in with that thing you always talk about where everything is getting RPG elements to it. Like, this is basically choosing your class.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Personalizing something to how you like to play and how you want to be seen in the game.
Yep.
And even though Overwatch is obviously not an RPG, I think there is an element of that.
Role play.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, we could maybe answer one or two more. Sam has to jet out of here pretty quick, so we can't spend too much time. Texture glitch. It seems we've been here before in terms of World War II games. I remember when everything was World War II. COD, Medal of Honor, Brothers in Arms, etc. And Shane was talking about World War II fatigue. Then COD moved to Modern Warfare and Future Warfare, and other games followed. Now we're talking about World War II being innovative and new again, and Vietnam next. Is this just the pendulum swinging back? Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. It's just a natural curve, and it's just going to keep going like this. It's like people are eventually going to burn out on World War II and World War I and Vietnam, and then they're going to be like, give me some future technology. And there's always going to be young people coming into the market who are then old enough to play M-rated games, like they're not playing them now. But there's always going to be new people coming into the market who are then going to start playing those games, who are going to come in during whatever era. They're going to come in, some people are just getting in now. They're going to end up playing all these World War II, World War I games. In 7 years, they're going to get sick of them, just like we were back during the PS2 era. And then the publishers are going to respond, and they're going to start playing more traversal-focused, sci-fi, future-forward type shooters. So yeah, it's just a cycle.
And then when they'll go backwards, but instead of going all the way back to the classic conflicts, they'll start doing stuff like Desert Storm and the Afghanistan conflict, because enough time will have passed that won't be quite so immediate.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, there will be an era of modern warfare as well. Yeah. Probably, where we are like replaying like some of the more recent wars. Hopefully it's not World War IV.
And at a certain point there will be a modern warfare where you and I will be like, I remember when this was the future warfare.
Yeah. No, seriously. That'll be like present day stuff.
Everybody's running around in Iron Man suits and drones everywhere.
It's already kind of there.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the stuff the military is using already is pretty intense. So, all right, we're going to cut off the questions there. It's time to mention our sponsor, xreturns.com.
Oh, Korean War. Somebody mentioned Korean
War.
Oh,
yeah. Has there been a game on the Korean War?
If there is, I missed it. Yeah. But that's sort of the nature of the Korean War. It's called the Forgotten War for a reason.
Right, yeah.
But it's rapidly becoming more and more relevant.
It is, surprisingly, yeah.
So,
for sure.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that pop up at some point, too.
Yep. All right, xreturns.com. Your games deserve more. There's so many stores and sites that will charge you 10, maybe 15% or more for the privilege of selling a used game. This is not in the copy, but that's eBay. We charge $0. xreturns.com is a brand new marketplace being built from the ground up so you can sell your games, collectibles, electronics, and memorabilia. Not only will they beat their competitors' commission in every category important to you, but they'll also make exchanging your used games commission-free. You get 100% of the value of your collection. Sign up for pre-launch and share us on social media to be entered to win an SNES Classic this holiday season. There you go. Our sponsors at xreturns.com. Go sign up right now. It's always great to support our sponsors to show that they're actually getting action from the sponsorship. So thank you very much, xreturns.com. Hope you guys are doing great. So that wraps it up for us. Probably going to be a while to our next show.
Next week?
Yeah, but probably later in the week. So it's probably going to be like more than a week's delay before the next one. Just want to give you guys a heads up on that before we say adios. But
Maybe we'll have, no, it'll probably be before the Super Nintendo Classic,
yeah.
you think? Because it's the 29th.
Yeah, well, it has to be. Because
Yeah.
I did promote my insane 24-hour live stream. I saw somebody in the comments say, 24-hour live stream, that's nothing. Is that true?
These days, yeah.
A single person does more than 24 hours?
I mean, they'll go nap periodically sometimes.
Oh,
but
really?
They'll take some breaks. It's not constant. But, like, yeah, there's been 48, 30,
Really?
72-hour live
They're
streams.
doing drugs. That's the only thing I can say.
Well,
I'm doing it
coffee at the
drug-free,
very least.
people. It's going to be bone straight.
And often there are
Other than Red
often
Bull,
there's
maybe.
teams or what. But, yeah, like, very long marathon live streams.
Well, it is funny. A lot of the people who have done that, they've later come out and said that they became, like, drug addicts because of it. So I'm doing mine clean other than Red Bull. I'm probably going to have a case of Red Bull sitting here just trying to make it through. So that's it for us. That's episode 103. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.